Hello, and welcome to another meeting of the Geek Cabal Whisperings. This is episode 14. Today's date is November 7th, 2023. I'm Jim, by the way.
Bob?
And yeah, so we'll see what we've got today. I know that today is kind of a hodgepodge of topics that we're going to be going over, but we'll see how that goes. I mean, sometimes
Yeah.
those are the favorite ones because just
Yeah, we're having to record a little bit early because schedules aren't going to quite sync up later on in the week here, so gonna be winging it a little bit more here. But that's what you fine folks are here for, so or at least that's what the handful of people that comment tell me anyway. So
yep,
if you think otherwise, let us know.
yes.
So anyway, channel news. At least as of a few minutes ago, whenever I checked, we do finally have 300 subscribers. So we'll hopefully be able to get together and make a video, thanking everyone. In the meantime, thank all of you out there who helped make that possible. It's all very appreciated.
Yep.
Yeah, hopefully it doesn't glitch back to 299 because we've kind of circled the 298, 299 area for like 2 weeks. So it would go up, then it would go down. It would go up, then it would go down. Hopefully we're up, we're good here, but we'll see. YouTube is fickle.
Yeah, because we had two videos that came out this week. So we had the podcast from last. When you're listening to this, it'll be the previous week's podcast. But we had the previous week podcast, and we had the Super Nintendo, and then we may still later this week have the Lego one, right?
Yes. By the time you hear this, there will have also been a Lego video. We filmed it last week, but circumstances, one particular circumstance dictated that I should probably add a little addendum to that video because it would appear that Bricklink has been hacked, and I don't know that if it's back online yet or not. Excuse me, and it's been offline for several days now. So I felt that I shouldn't be directing people to a site that, as of that moment, wasn't actually up and running. And I made a few other comments, but I filmed that just before I filmed this, so that's going to have to get edited into the Lego video, but it will be up by the end of the week, barring a problem. One other thing about that is that as I was editing the second video, I realized that I never even touched on the idea of buying the Lego sets to resell them. Just purely when's the good time to buy what. But there's a whole science to the reselling part, although it's probably more art than science. At least that's what my disclaimer is going to tell you anyway, because I am not a financial advisor of any shape or form, and you should not take anything I say as financial advice. And I'm going to be crystal clear on that in part 3, which will be filmed sometime in the near future. But I just realized I had a lot of thoughts on that matter that I never really went into in the other video. So, because I'm sure people are interested in that as well. But all I can really talk about is what has worked for me in the past, which is no indicator of future success. Just so we're all crystal clear on that. But anyway, and also I've already filmed a video to kind of wrap up the Halloween retrospective because there's just a few little notes I should have made through the other videos, and also realized that I never really actually commented on which ones I like and dislike throughout all those videos. So that's at the very end. That's a fairly short video though. That will probably be up after this video, but maybe before. I've already recorded it in short, and it's going to be 6 days before this one's up. So you never know. If that's already up, you should check it out. It's good stuff. Um, but other than that, and hopefully while we're recording tonight, we'll be able to record the other little bit that I need to begin rebranding the clips from these podcasts, as we settled on Echoes of a Whisper, because this is Cabal Whisperings, and it's a part of it, so it's only like an echo of the main thing, and it all makes sense to me. Hopefully it makes sense to you folks. Like 5 years from now, I might look back on it and be like, that's just dumb. Let's just call them podcast clips or something. But for now, that's what we're going with. So
Trying to stand out from the crowd, and
yeah, and I'm not gonna lie. I came across this looking at how other people structure things. We're also going to cut the intro at the beginning. It's just going to go cold open straight into it. Our blurb will be at the end of the video. So that seems to be working for everyone else. And while I hate to just follow the crowd, they seem to know what they're doing. So
well, following the crowd with the structure, not the topics, and not the
Well,
way that you
right,
deliver
right.
it,
Yeah, yeah.
and all that. So,
So, anyway, I think that's it. Although, I should probably, I guess, just go ahead and put this here. It's about the South Park episode. I just want to
mhm.
be clear on one thing. In our last podcast, episode 13, we talked about the new South Park Panderverse episode, movie, whatever the hell it is, on Paramount Plus at the moment. Could be someplace else later if you're listening to this in like 2025 or something, but right now in old 2023, it's only on Paramount Plus. So the last episode I mentioned that this episode pretty ruthlessly goes after Kathleen Kennedy and Disney, and I've seen a number of people try to kind of equivocate and be like, "Oh, it goes after both sides." In an incredibly minor way, it does, and but the vast majority of the criticism is very clearly aimed at Disney. Having said that, the bit they do throw at the other side is very important because I think people at this point have like taken up sides to the point that if there is even a hint of actual diversity, people assume it's woke or pandering or whatever you want to label it, instead of just diversity. Because as I've said before, diversity is a fine goal in and of itself. It's just like the big problems I think a lot of people have is how they're going about doing it. But also the fact that these folks jump on Twitter and act like history just started yesterday. Like we've mentioned before, whenever I don't remember who it was, but I think it's the Black Panther. People act like that was the first black superhero in cinema. And it's like, well, no, it's not. Like Marvel had another black superhero back in the '90s, Blade. You might remember him. His current movie is apparently a total dumpster fire, but the three from the '90s, well, two of the three from the '90s were good in early 2000s, I think. But anyway, the point is, black superhero did buku bucks. Everyone loved it. Probably a very key component to our current comic book movies even existing, because people forget that proved that not only could a comic book movie be successful, but that a graphically violent R-rated comic book movie of a total D tier character could be successful. And so after that is when the studios got to really paying attention, like, hey, let's make Spider-Man, the X-Men, etc. all happen, and then eventually Iron Man and the MCU. So you had him, you had Meteor Man, not the greatest entry for this particular thing, but Meteor Man is not just a black superhero; it's a predominantly black movie. That's been honest, I've seen it, but I believe almost every character in the movie is black. And you also had
Blank Man.
Blank Man,
Sorry.
and there's others. Like even within the MCU, by the point Black Panther came out, we already had Luke Cage. I believe we already had Falcon, and I want to say there's a couple others that I'm forgetting, but I might not be. But the point is, it's everyone rushing to Twitter, X, whatever the hell you want to call it, and crowing about it. That's what pisses people off. Coupled with, oh, you don't like it? Well, you're a racist. Like, well, no, you might just not like the movie. Like, movies have legitimate concerns and complaints. And we can all thank the 2016 Ghostbusters for that trend of just shitting on your audience. And that was just a horrible move. And the studios did not learn the lesson where that movie just absolutely tanked. And instead, like, oh, that's a great idea. Let's double down. Because they know they've got an army of losers that'll parrot what they say for free online. But anyway, the overarching point I'm driving at is that people need to differentiate between diversity, which is good, and pandering, which is either not good or at least far less good.
Well, the big problem with pandering is you're not letting people stand on their own merits.
Right. And it leads to, tokenization is what it leads to. And, well, yes, that does change the landscape of the movie, not in a way that people are going to ever remember those characters. No one's going to be like, oh, yeah, I remembered so and so. That was great. That's a real win for such and such community. It's like, no, that was blatantly pandering. The people being pandered to obviously see that. Everyone else that's not being pandered to also obviously sees that. So it's just no good. What people want are well written characters, and if it's a well written character, you don't give a crap what color they are, whether it's a man or a woman. Again, I fall back to Alien. The hero is a heroine, although the roles are originally written gender neutral. And if you look at the crew of what are there, 6 people on the ship, 2 of them are women, one of them is a black guy. That's a movie from like 1978, 1979, filmed in England. Like, that's actually pretty damn diverse for that particular moment in time and place. Like, if you want to see what I mean, look at Star Wars, the original New Hope. Much as I love the movie, like, not a lot of color differentiation there, you know? And of course, the Empire keeps that. And remember, they're the bad guys. That's why. But yeah, it's just it's less the movies themselves, although some of them are still a problem, and more just these people that just live on Twitter who are just they're like, oh, this is so important, and then whenever you see the movie, it forces you to realize, or to at least consider, that they were more concerned with checking check boxes than actually making a good product. Because you see these people celebrate certain things, and they're never like, oh, we made a really compelling movie. They never say that. And it's a good thing they don't, because they'd be lying.
Yep.
That's the problem. If you make a good story, like, like the Shawshank Redemption,
Mm-hmm.
you know that Morgan Freeman's character in the book is an Irish guy. That's why they call him Red. All right? Which, by the way, for those of you that don't know, that's also wildly wrong. Like 80% of the people in Ireland have black hair, not red hair. Red hair is more of a Scottish and Scandinavian thing. I have a personal stake in that particular argument, but anyway, in case you can't tell, my hair is red. So the yeah, so in the movie, he just blows it off with a line from the book where he says, "Probably on account of my red hair," where he very clearly doesn't have red hair, and they just never go with it. They just roll with it as a joke. But Morgan Freeman's an excellent actor, so no one cares. You know, that's the way it works. It has a well written part. It's a well written movie. People overlook those things. So, or like in Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, no one really, really sits there and is like, well, would a Moore really do all that? Like, no. Again, Morgan Freeman is an excellent actor. They made it work for the plot, so no one cares. You know, he enhances the movie because again, he's an excellent actor. You know, and so that's the problem. The problem isn't diversity. The problem is poorly written parts, and that's what the majority of people are pissed off about. But there are the handful who are probably just racist assholes. They exist. Like, but the key is acknowledging that they're not the bulk of the people. The bulk of the people who have the problem are like Stan and Kyle in this episode, who are confronted with the fact that their friend has been replaced with a black woman, and everyone's like, what are you guys talking about? And they're like, this is obviously not Cartman, even though she behaves exactly like Cartman, so,
Yeah.
it's debatable. But they're just arguing the point that, like, well, no, we're used to this person being a certain way, and this is clearly a different person. And I think that's an acceptable issue to have with these things. But if you're arguing just for the sake of, oh, there's black people in it, you might want to re-examine your life, because that's not a legitimate complaint. That's probably coming from a dark place. And I just think it's really, really important to distinguish between the two, you know, and to acknowledge that, yeah, there probably are racist dicks that's all they do. They're, the people that don't like the Black Panther movie purely because it's full of black people, even though it's set in Africa, so it probably should be.
Yep.
So anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there just because I don't know exactly how everything came off as far as describing that episode in the last video. And, just want to be clear that while I do find it all quite hilarious, that diversity in and of itself is a worthwhile goal. But how you go, like any other thing, how you go about it is almost as important as what you're trying to accomplish.
Yep.
Like the expression, the road to hell is paved with good intentions doesn't exist for no reason. So anyway,
So I was gonna say one other bit of.
let me climb down off my soapbox now and let Jim continue.
Well, I was gonna say now for at least a little bit of funny channel news before we move
Little
on.
levity.
Yes, when I was trying to on our Facebook page, the Geek Ball, I forget which one. Yeah, Geek Ball is just a Facebook page. I was trying to upload my our Super Nintendo unboxing video on there, and for whatever reason, I was getting fact checked. So I actually had to go back and look at what the post it said I was being fact checked with, and it was something for the Ukraine, and it was only for partly false information. And the problem is that I can't read any of this to actually tell you exactly what it is, but it's referring to.
Yeah, I don't read or speak Ukrainian or Russian, whichever that happens to be.
And I have no idea why. The only thing I could think of is that it was the YouTube URL had some sort of letter combination that made it feel that, because it didn't tell me that until I kept pasting the but somehow it finally let me post it. So
well,
because I was I'm posting about me unboxing a Super Nintendo. It's like your post has been fact checked as partially false, and I'm like,
it's not really a Super Nintendo, Jim.
Yeah, it's fake. But
yeah, so there is one other like little just channel bit because I completely forgot this in the last one, and I said I was going to say something about it earlier in the video or alluded to it anyway. And that is, since we have mentioned before, we're here in Southern Indiana. Last week, Bob Knight, who is the former coach of the IU men's basketball team, passed away, and I think he was 83. And I only mention that because he's, it's kind of a big deal here in Southern Indiana. He was, very well known as a basketball coach. A number of people seem to be kind of split on, the facts of him being fired. Some people think it's all baloney. Others think he went too far and believe the story that they heard. And I don't know. I wasn't there, so I couldn't say. I just know that my dad's a huge basketball fan, likes going to the games. I'm old enough to remember going to some of the games while he was still the coach. In fact, I was there for several games against Purdue. I was there for the last game that Gene Cady, who is the legendary Purdue basketball coach, coached at IU. And just, one of those people that you think is just going to kind of go forever somehow, and obviously they don't.
Yeah, I know he's also known for rearranging furniture.
Yes. He's a very big enthusiast of chair movement.
Actually, kind of a neat small factoid on him is that local basketball coach here wrote a book, and Bob Knight actually wrote a insert for his book.
Oh yeah,
for Jack Butcher. So.
Yeah.
Which Jack Butcher's still kicking around now. You want to go into some funny things there is that when Jack Butcher was a coach, Larry Bird was playing at in French Lake. Springs, is it Springs Valley?
Probably.
Or White. I don't know. I'll probably get some hate on that, but yes, just down the road is where Larry Bird grew up. So yes, he played here locally in high school. Very famously, scored a point for Lagodi in a game that my mom was at. So,
well, Sarah and I went on a train ride over there in French Lick, and we actually it goes by his old house, and they pointed it out as we go by. I'm assuming they're being honest. I mean, it's one of those things like if you're going to lie about it, like someone's going to figure it out sooner or later, and you're going to think you're a real asshole. But
he's got a restaurant over there too.
Yeah,
33 Rick Street, I believe.
Oh, is that his?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. That's their steaks are pretty good. I go there sometimes when Sarah and I are over there.
Yeah, so as you can tell, basketball is very much rooted around here. So
yeah, I mean, like when the basketball game is called Hoosiers, it takes place in Southern Indiana. Like,
yep.
But yeah. By the way, go Hoosiers! Good luck in the season. Oh God, I can't think of the current coach's name, and that really bothers me because I should know it because he's a good coach. Woodson. Mike Woodson, I want to say?
Yep.
Yeah. He's a former player himself, and seems to be a good coach, and hope hope it all works out. I mean, not to go too far into the weeds here, but I am not really for the current configuration where like they're allowed to pay the money essentially. You know, I get the argument for it, and I would be all for them like putting the money that they would be earning like into a trust or something.
Yeah.
And then once they graduate or leave the school or whatever, you know, once their college career is over, however that happens, then they get the money. In the meantime, you know, a stipend so they're not living basically penniless. You know, I'm all for that. That's fine. But just like straight up paying them, I don't know. For everything I hear, at least IU tries to like tie it into charitable things, so they're not literally just giving them money like some of the schools do. Because you know, it's college. Like, you know, especially if you're on a scholarship, like that's your payment. You
Yep.
know,
Yeah. No.
like you want to make the money, go to the NBA. You know, no one's stopping you. But I think some of the rules surrounding it were stupid. As far as like if they go somewhere and someone buys them a dinner, like that could somehow really screw them with the NCAA. Like that was stupid. You know, and a bunch of other things like that. Plus, they never investigate the schools that everyone knows are paying these kids off. And instead, they'll find like some minor infraction at IU and like throw the book at them and be like, "Oh, well, see, we investigate everybody." And it's like, "Oh yeah, well, you know, they're paying the players in Kentucky, like you know that, right?" And they were, they still are. Oh well, yeah, that I think that's the one that even had like testimony in federal court to that effect. And the NCAA is like, "Yeah, well, we've got to look into it ourselves." It's like, the fuck are you talking about? Oh, we didn't find anything. Yeah, okay, the FBI investigation was bogus. I mean, maybe it was. I don't know, but still. Anyway, we're getting wildly off topic now.
Hey, you know what though? With the
We'll,
light.
we'll, we'll turn this into the sports channel for two people that don't watch much sports.
No, but yeah, I think coming from a basketball community, it was kind of hard not to. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I enjoy going to the games with Dad. Um, I can't watch basketball on TV. You know, I if I'm gonna watch it, it's got to be in person.
yeah, that's me with pretty much any sport. Like, I
Like
mean,
I was gonna say, like football, like I watch on TV because it's a slower pace and you know it's easier to keep track of what's going on.
but
And
it's still a better experience in
oh
person.
yeah, it's better live for sure. Golf might not be, and golf's boring as hell. But sorry to you golfers out there, it's too slow pace for me. I've only ever been to one professional baseball game. That was kind of exciting. I'd go to that again. But I would definitely like, unlike last time, I'd try to get the tickets, and I would try to make sure we were going to be in the shade through most of the game. Figure out which way the stadium's oriented, make sure we're not in the side that's going to be blasted by the sun. But that's a key determining factor for me going to the IU football games too. By the way, if they start before or around noon, I'll pass because like the sun goes like right over the stadium. So unless it's like 3 or 4 o'clock, then the side of the stadium that we sit on won't be in the shade. I'll go to the night games; they're fun. Usually have fireworks there too. But yeah, so that's probably it for channel news and other random tidbits.
Yep.
So on to movies. Now, I ended up watching Five Nights at Freddy's last night.
What'd you think?
I thought it was all right. It's entertaining. There was since I've never played the games, there were parts I didn't expect. Then it was a lot less violent than I was expecting. Like it definitely just cuts away from most of the gruesomeness. So although I should have figured that out with the PG-13 rating, I guess.
Yeah.
Except for the woman that gets bitten in half. Like there, you definitely see some stuff, and like her lower half fall down to the floor. So like, it's pretty obvious what happened to her.
As Owen said, he said it's pretty comical.
Yeah, it had its moments. Like I said, I since I never played the games, there were parts I didn't expect. Like I didn't expect that his daughter was just gonna like be like, oh yeah, by the way, here's the animatronic puppets that are like possessed, and you know the cop being like, yeah, I forgot to mention that, kind of, you know, and the guy like, oh, so robots powered by the ghosts of kids, huh? Like anything else you forgot to mention?
Yes, it's a combination of the metal that's into them that and the way that they were assembled caused them to be able to absorb souls.
Yeah. So
Yes.
they did not explain that.
No, which I would expect not to because I don't think it's not explained until later, anyways.
And I didn't see I guess it's a twist towards the end coming. That the guy that hired him was the guy that killed the kids,
Yeah.
and like had his own costume there too and everything. And
Yes, and I heard that the spring locks and that got to,
yeah,
which doesn't kill him.
yeah. Well, I mean, if he stays there long enough, it will. He's going to bleed out, but
Now, somehow he survives all that. He survives being torched multiple times too.
oh well. But yeah, so interesting seeing Matthew Lillard back in action there briefly at the beginning and the end. The movie felt very fast, but it's probably because I slept through about the first 20 minutes of it. But kept dozing off and like kept waking back up, and it's like I really should pause this. Back awake. Oh, I guess we're moving along. Then oh, okay, he's in the place now. All right. So yeah, I mean, like I said, I was entertained. And after watching it, I was like, holy shit, this was the number one movie at the box office, huh? There must not be a damn thing out. And I don't see the Marvels dethroning it either. So, which is terrible. But here we are. Uh,
Which, and speaking of that, I mean, I don't think anybody should just look at, look at something, see what all these people are saying, oh yeah, the Marvel's going to suck. It's going to be this. If you want to go watch the movie, if you have any interest in doing it, go do it. I mean, I don't, I don't want to see what happened with Solo happen with the Marvels if Marvels is an actually okay movie. You know what I mean? Because people had, and don't get me wrong, they had the right to be butthurt about The Last Jedi because it sucked.
yes.
But they boycotted a good movie
Right.
to show, like, stick it to them. No, it's like you post your reviews because the thing with like Rotten Tomatoes, nobody looks at the tomato meter; they look at the user score because nobody cares about what a critic thinks about a movie anymore. The days of Siskel and Ebert are a thing of the past where you could actually trust a lot of what they were saying because they had to go into these movies looking at as a movie on its own, how does it stand? Not all the other stuff. And for the most part, you could trust what they had to say. Maybe not always agree with it, but you understand that they were coming from a place of actually critiquing stuff versus now it's like like your conversation about inclusion. It's like when that becomes part of the review scores, it's like, well, that's not scoring. Fine, they can win it. They can have their award for having whatever. But as far as critiquing a movie, the movie should be critiqued on its merit, not
Right.
on what it has and what it doesn't have in it.
Right. Yeah. I'm one of those suckers that's probably going to try to go watch the Marvels. Um, we'll see if I can find anyone else to tag along, but that's my tentative plan.
Yeah, I'd like to go. I think the boys would probably like to go. I feel bad because I've missed out about every Marvel movie. Even if they weren't really good, I like to be the one to go and watch. And now, yes, I can watch it on Disney Plus. I'm wondering how the ads are going to kick in now with those. Are they going to kick in like in the middle of the movie? Is it going to be in the beginning and then at the end?
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. I didn't mention this in the last podcast when I talked about the ones I watched on Peacock.
Mm-hmm.
It was very clear that those were filmed knowing it was going to have ads, because like they definitely put them in like on a TV show where like the TV show it's clearly meant to cut at certain points for ads, not like say I don't know if you watch it on I don't know what the hell's one of the services that could have ads.
Well, like if you watch on Tubi, it's just like in the middle of everything.
Yeah, it'll just be like in the middle of a random scene or something. Like no, these are very clearly like something happens, cut to commercial, come back. It's very clearly designed for that.
Yeah, because what I've noticed with the like Tubi and the other free ones like that is that when it comes back, usually it'll rewind a minute or like a few seconds, so that if they were in the middle of dialogue, you pick up with that dialogue starting again or whatever.
Yeah, actually, now that I think about it, I don't think there were any commercials through Five Nights at Freddy's. Even though I watched that on Peacock also, and I don't think they were through Mario. But I might be mistaken on that. I might just be totally blocking them out. But I know they were in the two shows. So
Yeah, and I don't mind that. What I again with Tubi, you get sometimes up to 6 ads multiple times through the movie versus like Paramount, which is like 3 ads. Um, and I mean, I get it. They have to, especially a free service. They're having to get their money's worth because they're not charging you anything for it.
well, right. That's what I think. People, I think a lot of people just never figured that out about TV. Like the reason that the channels you have that are either free or cheap is because that the show isn't the service that they're selling. It's the ads during the show that they're selling. That's where they're making all their money.
Yeah, that's why, like in cartoon world, they always make the joke about that they only have 11 minutes to do something because there's literally for every 30 minutes
Yeah.
of real time, there's 11 minutes of that, and then the rest is all done in commercials.
Oh, God, I'd hope not, Jim. That'd be 19 minutes of commercials to 11 minutes of, like, for most shows, it's 22 to 8, right?
Well, I think it's more than that. I mean,
No, it's for standard cable, it's 22 and 8 and 45 and 15 if it's an hour long episode. Yeah, that might be different with cartoons. So I'm not, I don't know.
back when cartoons used to pander to children, and now they can't. Like the movies, or not movies, the commercials used to. I mean, you'd go, here's this, and then it's like nothing but toy ads afterwards with kids.
Well, that actually only started while we were kids, right? Before that was illegal.
Yeah.
That's why the 80s saw that huge cartoon boom. It's because they changed the law. And like a few of them, even before they changed the law, figured out how to skirt the law. Like the G.I. Joe cartoon. Because the G.I. Joe cartoon wasn't advertising the toys, it was advertising the comic book, which was totally legal. Just so happened there were all these toys that lined up with both of them.
Yep.
So yeah, there's some sneaky folks there at Hasbro. So still are. I think they work for the Pinkertons. But to bring up something that happened 6, 7, 8 months ago, never forget.
And just wait till they come up to the door and like, hey, we heard you mentioned this.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, I don't know, the Marvels. I saw one video kind of summed it up, and I didn't disagree with it. Let me try to remember how they put it. It was a movie full of characters no one knows, fighting an enemy no one knows, for stakes no one cares about, to do things that no one knows or cares about.
Well, they did show a image of, I guess, the main villain and who she was, and I have no clue.
Of course you don't, because she is a he and white in the comics. He is a comic character. He's one of the Kree. He's only in like a couple issues or something. But no, I've seen the pictures of what they look like in the comics, and let's just say it's not a black woman with a grill, which if you've noticed in the close-up she has. Like, then you notice the other Kree don't. No, nothing against anyone that's got a grill or anything, but like, unless there's a really damn good reason in the movie, like, why? That doesn't look anything like the rest of the Kree. The grill part. There are multicolored Kree. Multi-ethnic Kree, I guess it should be the real way I'm saying this here, but although in the comics it's primarily pink and blue. So.
Well, they could have got the Kree Sentry in there.
Yeah, I mean, for all we know, we're going to see a big Kree Sentry robot, but I doubt it. Because she appears to be like Ronin 2.0.
Well, and the thing is that all they have to do, they've done this before, because I'm telling you, before the first Guardians of the Galaxy, nobody knew who the hell Ronan the Accuser was.
Yeah.
I mean, we knew, but most people did not know who Ronan the Accuser was. And they made a compelling character out of him. I mean, they didn't have to go and do all this backstory and all this other stuff. And, just like you could he was a character you could say, okay, I can kind of see where he's coming from. He's proud raised, doesn't want to take crap from Thanos, but he's following his orders right now to get the power he needs to.
Yeah. Speaking of that, they released another trailer for the Marvels, and like the first minute or so of it, minute and a half, It's just footage from Endgame.
Yeah. Did you see the
And
Echo?
it's like, why? What's happening? Like, what are you selling me here? Like, I saw Endgame. I know this isn't Endgame. And the parts of Endgame you're showing me are the parts I didn't like. You know, I didn't like some Johnny Come Lately character coming up and actually being a threat to Thanos. So I was like, that's a bunch of bullshit. You know, you're reminding me of the things I don't like about Captain Marvel. That's not selling me on this movie.
Yeah, I mean, she should have been like another Thor at most.
Yeah, well,
You know
it's
what I mean? Where she can hold her own for a little bit, but
right
in the
because
end,
yeah, because one of the big problems is most of the other characters are toned down in terms of their power levels in the movies, and she isn't for some random reason. I'm sure it's completely random, but you know, like and like Captain America has turned up a little bit, you know,
yeah,
because he's definitely doing things that no normal human being can do, even though he's supposed to be like peak physical human being.
yeah,
He's more like Ultimate's Cap, who, as I understand it, I think actually does have low level superhuman strength and some other things. But then you have like Thor. Like the Thor by himself can handle half the things that gets thrown at them in the MCU if he was at full power. Like Thor doesn't need Heimdall to open up the Rainbow Road or any of that crap. He can do all that with his hammer in the comics. He can teleport, you know, pretty easily. And like this is the guy that like fights Celestials and Thanos and Galactus occasionally,
yeah.
you know, and not the Hercules approach where Hercules tried to get Galactus drunk one time with some kind of like Greek god booze of some kind, and Galactus, while not drunk, was highly amused because Hercules got quite drunk, and so Galactus agreed not to eat whatever he was going to eat. I don't think it was the Earth, but
So, did you happen to see the Echo trailer?
yeah, I'm pretty sure I watched it. Yeah, I did. I did. And yes, like you said, lots of Kingpin in that.
It's like Kingpin beating the ice cream man to death.
Yeah, yeah, I saw that.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I give Disney credit for putting that kind of a scene into a movie.
Yeah, yeah. Whenever I was watching the trailer, I saw what you meant, and I think it even said somewhere in there that it was a TVMA thing. So yeah, that one might be a little more graphic than the others. So you know, that's a good thing because there are certain Marvel comics that are like that, and it bodes well if that works and they port that over to Blade, which I don't know. That's going to be terrible if it's not R, but we'll see. But yeah, that looked okay. I mean, I'll watch it for sure. Oh well, speaking of that, obviously, since because we're recording this earlier in the week, I haven't watched the finale for Loki season 2 yet. It's in 2 days from recording this, so it will have happened by the time you good folks watch this. But we're not talking about it yet, and I don't think Jim's caught up, so I don't want to speculate in front of him.
No, 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 and I know I'm. It's like I said, it's work has been very, very, very busy. Actually, work was still sending me messages now, so at some point I'll have to go back up and check in on that and see how that's going. So what other
It's
movies you got?
good. Let's see. Uh, I should have written these down when I was telling you earlier. Because I think most of it was just shows on streaming. Because I watched the first episode of Miss Marvel, which we haven't talked about yet. I watched, like I said, Five Nights at Freddy's, Castlevania, but that's under streaming. It's series. I don't know. Oh, yeah, well, the others are all episodes under streaming. So the only thing over under movies I was going to say was I watched a gentleman's video talking about Robocop 2 and how it was a departure in a lot of ways from Robocop 1. It's been a while since I've bothered to watch Robocop 2 or 3. I watched the first one fairly regularly, but 2 and 3 and just kind of got me thinking about series where I don't want to say decline in quality because that's almost just like part of the definition of being a sequel. Uh, but more like where a series just goes off some of the direction entirely or where it actually like regresses. You know, I just without having watched RoboCop 2 recently, whenever you pointed that out, that made a lot of sense. Because by the end of RoboCop 1, RoboCop is back to being Alex Murphy. And RoboCop 2 is kind of back to being RoboCop, except for that creepy stalking his wife thing. And like the guy was saying, like that's the kind of thing that you could carry through with a movie, and like it's built up and resolved in like 5 minutes. That should have been like a major character point for Alex. Like there should have been the build up of him like, I wish I could tell my wife, but I can't or I shouldn't. And ultimately the moment where he has to tell her to lie to her and say, your husband's dead. Like they just put his face on a machine. I'm just a robot. You know. And then, see how that devastates him. But like it's never brought up again in the whole rest of the movie. Or tie it into maybe because of the way he died, she didn't get a pension or something, and all of a sudden she gets hooked on the nuke, and to intimately tie all that together. There was a lot of ways to do it that they really just fell short on. But I did agree with his assessment that it was a good thing they didn't just try to just replicate Clarence Boddicker again, and so the villain was different and not directly tied to OCP, and they at least made choices to go in different directions.
Yep.
Then the third one just kind of took off. Peter Weller went the other way.
Yes, not with a jetpack.
Yes, not with a jetpack. Probably actually go like research some archaeology somewhere, because he's apparently an archaeologist.
Yeah, well, until he got his head crushed by Khan.
Yeah, well, mistakes were made there, like trusting Khan. Or becoming a Starfleet admiral. That seems to be a one-way ticket to insanity in Star Trek.
Or death.
Yeah, that too. So anyway, like I said, it got me thinking about, maybe talking about sometime down the road, talk about movies where like there's an entry or two that just totally take off on their own, and you're like, where the hell did this come from? Or movies where kind of how like action movies in particular, how some of them have stood the test of time and rise above, and what does it take versus the ones that are just pure wish fulfillment. So essentially, like if we look purely at Arnold's movies, the difference between say Terminator 2 and Commando, Commando's awesome, but there's nothing to that movie. That is 100% wish fulfillment, muscle bound action hero, bad puns. That's quintessential 80s action movie.
That in all reality should have ended the moment he started shooting at all of the guards.
Yeah.
Because it's like, instead of like Rambo stealth, it's just like, I'm going to stand out in the middle of this open yard and shoot everybody.
Right. And there's another perfect example. Like they make fun of Rambo for doing that very thing in like Hot Shots, but the first Rambo movie, like there's real weight to that movie. Like there's important topics floating around there, and arguably in the others as well. They are a little bit above your standard action fare at least. I haven't watched the fifth one, so I couldn't say for sure on that one, but the last one. But yeah, I mean, Stallone tries to do something more. So
that's grunt.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, it's just like something we should maybe talk about sometime. Like how some movies are able to rise above. I would argue that Conan, for instance, is more than just some dumb action movie. Now, sure, a lot of the lessons in it are far more critical to a barbarian 5,000 years ago, but like there's more there. There's a lot of talk about life and what it means to be a ruler or a father and things like this, and joining some crazy cult and things like that. There's more there. It's not just hacking and slashing. So I don't know. That's just like I said, the other guy's video just made me think that it might be something worth talking about in a future video or something.
I mean, and it does appear that Godzilla Minus Zero will be at least in Evansville, probably Bloomington as well.
Ooh, all right.
Out of 1,000 theaters that's going to be shown in the U.S., I'm pretty sure those would be one of two. I did see that AMC showed it being in Evansville. So, the thing is that in a movie that's not going to be, it's not going to be dubbed in English. It's going to be Japanese subtitles only. It's probably going to have more substance to it than most movies made here.
Yeah, I mean,
they can tell a compelling story and get a point across. And
what's like was it Hero? I think Jet Li. That was a good movie, and I'm pretty sure that one, when they were showed it in theaters, was subtitled. And there's some substance to it. I thought it was interesting anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, As far as movies go, I think it's about all I got, Jim.
Yeah, I've been non-existent on the movie front. Even my streaming has been very limited to what I've watched. But one of my streamings will go into what goes in with books. So
Oh, well, books is next, so go for it.
okay, so there's a channel that one of the many Lord of the Rings channels that I watch is called In Deep Geek is the name of it.
Yeah.
And he also I think does The Witcher and some other stuff too, but mostly I watch it for his Lord of the Rings stuff. Now, the latest video that he had on there was talking about the original version of The Hobbit. That The Hobbit was originally written first and was, I don't know if there was a plan to expand upon it, but I guess he, in the background, was still writing like the Silmarillion and all of that stuff, like building the lore.
Yeah.
But the publisher's like, hey, this is a good book. You need to write more, which I believe also took like 17 years for him to
Well, I mean, you can't rush perfection, Jim.
no, no, but kind of a neat factoid. But there was a glaring flaw in the original Hobbit for where he wanted to take Lord of the Rings. Because Lord of the Rings, he's like, I'm going to focus on the ring that Bilbo gets. And in the original, you know, when Bilbo finds the ring, he still plays the game of riddles with Gollum. But originally, when Bilbo wins, Gollum was going to go retrieve the ring and give it to him as his consolation prize. So he's like, "Well, I won the game, so I'm gonna have to give you something. You have to give him a gift," and the gift was going to be the ring. Now, obviously, with the way that the ring ultimately corrupts everyone that holds it, just would not have happened.
Yeah.
So he had to rewrite that and did it in a masterful way where the reason why the Hobbit was written the way it was and then rewritten is because the ring also corrupted Bilbo, where he didn't want to explain how he got the ring. He didn't want anybody to know anything about the ring because the ring was becoming his precious. So it was a fib that he told about how he got the ring, and that Frodo later recounts that Bilbo had confided in him the real truth on how he got the ring.
Hmm.
So that is why there's two versions of The Hobbit. So be interesting to find one of the original versions just to read that snippet. But yeah, if you want to watch that video, and I give the credit to, like I said, In Deep Geek. It was one of the videos he had on there about the original version of The Hobbit.
So, you aware that Tolkien ultimately ended up having an issue with how he depicted the orcs?
And how so?
Because he believed that everything had free will, including the orcs, and he never could like square that circle. How they're like bound to Sauron, but could have free will because as a Catholic, he believes that everyone
Yeah.
has free will, and he never could reconcile that fact. And apparently, that bothered him, to some degree or another, and he never did come up with a good answer for that problem. Also, if you've not seen it, the movie with I think it's Nicholas Holt, where he plays Tolkien like in his early years, and it's a decent movie. I'm not 100% certain how accurate it is because I don't know enough about Tolkien's life to tell you for certain. But it is good, and it does. Well, obviously, he's the guy who writes Lord of the Rings. It's about his life and about the woman he ended up marrying, and I think it even closes with mentioning what's on their respective tombstones and everything. And but no, it's more about that, and there's moments where obviously it takes artistic license to try to show you where they believe these things shaped his opinions, mainly his experiences in World War One, and it's a lot more about him becoming fascinated by language and words, and then having to go off and fight in the war, and coming back and having to deal with the fallout of that, and the deaths of his friends, and eventually getting around to trying to put all this effort to some greater work. And so I believe it closes with him beginning to write Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
So, but it's a good movie. Again, I can't vouch for the accuracy, but it is a good movie. So,
Well, and as a writer, he's a story and a world builder by any means, even if he is inspired by real life events. I mean,
Yeah. Well, you see him whenever he's at university there, and I don't remember what he initially was there for, but he really begins to really dig into the languages, and he like half invents his own language, and like the professor kind of overhears him going on about it, and he's like, and did I detect like a bit of Finnish in there? He goes, yeah, I stole from. He's like, no, 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 my good boy, borrowed. You borrowed from Finnish. Writers never steal, or something to that effect. And there's another conversation they have where uh, his professor just explains how a single word can have so much history and meaning to it, and the one he's talking about just goes on and on for all these examples, and it's the word oak. He talks about how oak trees are used to build ships and shields and castles, and just all this, and their own flags, and just all this in one single word. All this meaning is packed into it. Those are the parts of the movie that are worthwhile. Those little conversations, and you know, but yeah, like I said, it's a good movie. But yeah, anything else on the book front there, Jim?
No, no, it's just an interesting video. I say lately I've just been just watching a lot of different YouTube content. Some some stuff that I can put on the background while I'm working, and other stuff
Yeah,
to It's like after work, a lot of times it's like I just find myself not wanting to throw a movie on because I'm like I'm gonna end up passing out, and I don't like to fall asleep during a movie, so I usually just stream a bunch of like YouTube channels and different things like that. Um, and finding that I am strangely liking like because like again one of them I watch a lot of is Adam Savage's Tested, which he usually builds like movie props and different things like that. But I don't watch those videos. I like watch him like where he's like working on a tool or modifying one of his pieces of equipment. I have no idea why, but I find that to be more, like not entertaining, but like I get more into it. Like where
yeah,
he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna modify this piece of equipment." I don't know. I think it's just the creativity of being able to take something existing and make it, repurpose a tool or make a tool into something, it's not supposed, that's wasn't really originally meant to do or whatever. So been interesting on that. Uh, been watching a few things on some of the like stuff coming out of Star Wars and just things on that. I watched the comparison between all three Rogue Squadron games, and really the pinnacle of that was Rogue Squadron 2 because Rogue Squadron 3 was really just the same engine and everything, just more levels, and then throwing in first, like third person levels, which were just terrible.
yeah.
So, but it did have Disco Vader in it. Third one.
Disco Vader. There's a what's it called? Disco Kenobi, something like that. I'm going to look it up. This video we're talking from like the early days of the internet kind of video, where someone made a video using like stop motion with like the Kenner Star Wars action figures from the 70s. I think it's Kung Fu Kenobi's Big Adventure is what it was. There's a one part where like the Star Wars theme, like the disco version of it, starts playing, and
Speaking of that, some I don't know if my parents still have it. Somewhere we actually have the Disco Star Wars LP.
there you go.
I need to find that at some point. I remember listening. I actually remember breaking out the record player to put that on. And, gosh, you remember the storybooks that you would get? It would have the record that would go on it, that would go with it. So I had a few of the Star Wars ones where it would tell you the story, and then it would you would start the record, it would play through it, and it would read the story to you, and then it would tell you to turn the page, where then you'd go to the next page. Because we had one of the it was a 45, I believe, the smaller record.
I don't know what the difference between the numbers are, but
Yeah, it was a smaller record, and I apologize if I butcher that if it's a different number, but yeah, I believe you had to play it at a different speed and everything. But it was like they had like the little kitty record players, and it's just like, man, I wish I still had half of that crap. I mean, just looking at the stuff we grew up with and probably destroyed, blew up, and in the in the sacrificial bus and gasoline, little toy bus. And
Yeah,
let me rephrase that. It was a toy bus, usually filled with action figures or something, and some gasoline and.
gasoline, fireworks, and send them on an express bus to hell. Yeah, no, I definitely torched a couple Joe figures one time in the backyard. We used to have the burn pit back there, and there were some bricks in it. And then the fire went out. I made sure it was completely out. Then I hit him with the gas again, but because the bricks were so hot, the gas instantly vaporized in like a thick white cloud, and I was like, "Man, this is gonna be awesome." No more Joe figure. Like, it was instant charbroil. Then there were a few that were just refused to die. Like, I think it was Duke from like the 92 wave. Somehow, the rubber ring that was inside that Duke could have been used as like a car tire or something. Because you know how most of the rubber rings, like, you look at them funny and they could break? This one, I was able to stretch the figure to wedge firecrackers into the rubber O-ring, and it survived several of those. And what it finally took to destroy Duke was I got like the drop pops. I got one of the boxes from those. So for those of you listening, that would be a cardboard box, probably about 2 inches wide, about half to 3/4 of an inch deep, and probably about 4 inches tall. Very tight quarters for a 3 3/4 inch figure. Shoved him into the box, shove a pack of blockbusters into the box with him, and then taped the lid closed and lit the fuse. So, like, the box contained the blast and focused it all into Duke and blew him to pieces. And then, once he was a fallen soldier, we had to cremate him. So, he was next up in the burn pit. But yeah, there's a few of those things. I think I got the old sparkler device. I think that'll work.
Yeah.
I got that on film somewhere. One of those going off. That's a sight to behold. I'm surprised it don't fry the camera when it hits the part where all the phosphorus ignites. But so yeah, not going to go into an explanation on that because I don't know what YouTube does and doesn't care about on that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think we're on to streaming. Well, gaming. Do we have anything for gaming?
I mean, besides the Super Nintendo video, which again, you should go watch. It's pretty good. So already jumping up in views. Even just here, it's jumped up almost 10.
Well, that reminds me. I meant to ask you about that since as I was editing the video. I noticed the back of the box says Link 3 and not or Zelda 3, whichever, and not Zelda Link to the Past.
Yeah, let me go grab it real quick so I can read it because I did notice that as well. Try not to trip over the camera.
Jim will be back with us momentarily, folks. He's going to grab a box. Okay.
All right. So yeah, it did say Zelda 3 because technically it would be the third Zelda entry.
Yeah, it's the third one in the series. I couldn't remember off the top of my head if that's like the official title. Because
actually, I think it's on the poster.
Yeah, it's on the thing inside the box.
All right. Well, I'm going to try to open this up again and not.
So, since I never ended up playing it, what kind of game was Wario's Woods? Was it a side scroller also?
That I do not know. All right. I have to look that one up.
He is unfolding the poster for those of you who are only listening.
All right. Yeah, Zelda 3. The legend continues with what is sure to be chart-topping hit. Journey back to Hyrule and face against giant monsters and incredible, intricate traps and puzzles made possible by the power of the Super NES. And it's the same game, but I guess at that time they were referring to it as Zelda 3.
Okay.
So, no, that was I'm trying to see if there's anything else here that was referenced differently. Now, it's funny to see SimCity because there was also SimCity 2000.
Yeah.
On that, but
yeah, no, it caught my eye because it's one of the 2 Zelda games I've actually beaten.
So yeah, so now as far as Wario Woods, I don't know if it actually showed a.
It's on the back and it's got a something there with it.
It looks like a puzzle game.
Okay.
So yeah, just one of those that they. It's funny because it's the same thing with Kirby. It's a Kirby's. Well, it looks like Kirby's Dream Course has a little bit of both on it. So, but yeah, yeah. No, the Zelda 3 though. Yeah, interesting. That's what I like about opening this stuff up because some of that stuff, was some of that material was put together obviously before things were finalized and you actually get to
Right. Right.
see the naming because I wondered it. Yeah, because I believe that came out before Zelda Link's Awakening came out on the Game Boy. I bet that in release date order that would have been afterwards.
But yeah, folks, I've only played a handful of the Zelda games myself, but I have beaten Link to the Past and the Minish Cap Zelda I've beaten. I've got Twilight Princess HD on the Wii U, but I've only played it so far. So
I've beat the uh, the original NES version of Zelda. I've never beat Link to the or never beat the uh, Zelda 2 Link's Adventure. I've never beat that one.
yeah,
And that's a topic for another time because I think that would be a good discussion talking about the huge differences between the original Zelda and Zelda 2 because you went from a adventure kind of an adventure game to a almost like an RPG because you had RPG elements where you had to level up and get more power, get
yeah,
spells and different things. Um, and, and then again, just a total shift in gameplay. Like the only top-down view you have is when you're on the overworld, and everything else is side-scrolling. And that every single time that you die, you get the game over screen that tells you that your death caused the resurrection of Ganon. So it makes me wonder if he just died of old age with that resurrect Ganon.
Uh,
Which, so,
yeah,
but
something to consider. That's kind of a downer if that's the case.
yeah. But anyways, yeah. I mean, on that, besides the only other thing with games is I've got one more unboxing I got to do before get to do number 10, which I'm excited about, but at the same time will probably be one of those ones people are like, well, this is what I'm waiting for number 10. So,
Yeah, Jim, you got me sold. I'll watch it. I kind of have to. I added him, but
hey, I thought the Super Nintendo one was pretty good. I thought I kind of got into it.
yeah,
So, and it's short. It's one of those you can watch in I think it's only 12 minutes.
yeah, it's fairly short. So.
Because, yeah, I was like, I could give you.
Not all of our content is 2 hours long.
I was like, I could give you factoids about the Super Nintendo, but that would be about repeating every single thing that everybody else has said about the Super Nintendo. I mean, it's honestly one of those systems that most of our audiences probably either grew up with the Super Nintendo or the Sega Genesis, and if they didn't have the other one, probably went over to someone's house to play the other one.
Yeah.
See, for me, it was actually the Sega Genesis is what I owned, and my cousin had the Super Nintendo. So. And your cousin had the Philips CDI, so that's where I got the pleasure of playing that, and why I own one. Actually, I own three technically, two non-working ones, and
Yeah, the only game I ever played on there was Burn Cycle.
yeah, play that, play Voyeur, play the Hotel Mario, and I attempted to play Zelda: The Wand of Gamelon, but it is a hard game to play. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, as I use my Nintendo Mini with the extra games I've installed onto it, I want to get that Super Nintendo feeling again. Usually.
yeah,
I do also have some of those games like also on the Wii U because I had that before I bought the Super Nintendo Mini, so bought games on there.
yeah, which I believe I don't even think you can even use the Wii U store anymore. I know the Wii store is gone.
And I was gonna say I'm pretty sure the Wii U one shut down in the last year or two because I know I saw a post about it somewhere, and I was like, "What am I gonna go in there and buy?" You know?
Well, it does bring up a point with because I seen an article the other day talking about the death of physical media and in games. And so, what does that mean with these aging systems? Does that mean that, well, not even aging systems, like systems now that are going to no media? What happens in 10 to 15 years? Are you saying that if you don't have the physical media, you're done? Or you sell the console to somebody, there's no physical media. You can't even, I mean, like the whole used game market will be gone.
Well, I've seen people that actually lean the other way, that the used game market will actually boom somewhat because there will be people that will want the physical copies of the games.
Well, yeah, no, no. That's what I said. I think the death of physical media is going to would be the death of used game market altogether. Now, and I mean, when I say that, I'm talking, say, PS5 or the. Let's go way in the future. Let's say the PlayStation 6 is completely no, which like they don't even put a disc drive on it. It's just you have to hook it up to the internet. You get the stuff. What do you do when you want to go and sell that? Because all of those games are tied to your account. So you're going to now sell it with no games on it. Okay, cool. 10, 15 years down the road, and you want to sell it to somebody because somebody wants to play a PS6 exclusive game, but they can't get it anymore because the store is gone and there's no way of getting that physical media anymore. That's my thing is that there isn't a physical media spot to put it on there.
Oh,
Because like,
well, honestly, I have every confidence that people will figure out a way around that.
well, one way is people sell their login information.
Yeah, I mean, just remove your credit card information or delete or cancel your card. That's all you got to do.
Mm-hmm.
And your system be like, hey, I have this system with these games.
Yep, because that's what they did with the Hideo Kojima's PT trailer. Game never releases. It was supposed to be a Silent Hill prototype, playable teaser or playable trailer or whatever. And people loved it so much they took it from the App Store. You can't download it, so people would be selling the consoles with the trailer or with the game on there, so that and they would charge an outrageous amount for it. So, no, this is an interesting topic. I mean, me personally, with what I collect, I love the physical game media, having the stuff. I do like the idea though of like, say, I own the game, but then having like an EverDrive or something where I can play it without actually having to break out my physical copy, but still playing it on the original hardware kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, I would like to believe that there will be enough people that will that there will go in cycles. That like right now, you got people that are clearly willing to put up with not owning a physical copy.
Yeah.
But that perhaps the people behind them who are growing up with this not owning any of them and ultimately like whenever they come time to sell their first console to someone else and run into that problem, we're like, man, this is bullshit. What are we doing here? And just check out, be
Yeah.
like, I'm just gonna go play an older system. Like games are games, you know.
Well, and that's the thing is that I think we're getting into the era where even playing stuff on the 360 is not like I don't go and play a game on the Xbox 360 and think this looks like shit. I know I'm thinking, yeah, the graphics have improved, but they haven't improved so much that. But at the same time, like I don't have like a 360 library that I'm like, oh yeah, I want to go back and play that. There's certain games, yes, but they keep re-releasing them, doing remasters and all that crap. It may not even be a problem. Like you maybe have your nth generation console coming out where you can still play all these old games because somebody keeps remastering them and making like some sort of compatibility thing where you can still download them and buy them. I think when it went from when the 360 came out, I think that was kind of the game changing moment when because you had the PS3, um, you had the Wii U, I guess. I think that was the pivotal moment with things switched where people aren't as nostalgic about those games. I mean, they're good games. People still have fond memories of them, but I don't know that it's going to be as much of a collector's market on those because when I play, Modern Warfare 2 on that versus Modern Warfare on the PS4, I'm not like oh, I need to go back and play this because it's such a different experience. It's like the same game, just a little prettier on the newer console. And I think you're getting a lot of that. The only thing that you have is those games that are no longer available, on the this original Xbox, PS2, Nintendo Wii. They had a charm to them that they're never going to recreate. A different type of game experience, and they're also obviously all still on physical media. So I'm here rambling. I'm like telling the kids get off my front lawn with
Yeah.
my old
Well,
man talk.
yeah. Well, what I mean is more not necessarily that people are nostalgic for those games, uh, but more like, um, oh, okay, someone buys a game, and all of a sudden Microsoft decides that, oh no, there's something wrong with this game. And by wrong, I don't mean that the gameplay is wrong. I mean, like, I don't know, some unpopular political opinion is somehow or another endorsed via the game, according to them.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden they decide, you can't play that game anymore. And they just delete it from your console remotely or block it so you can't play it or whatever. You know,
Yep.
that will be 100% within their power to do that. And what's your recourse? You're going to take them to court, Microsoft, over $50, $60. And I think that's going to happen at some point. And once it happens once, it's going to happen more than once. And I think that's going to be the beginnings of the revolt against this kind of stuff. Because those games they're going to delete aren't all going to be like, oh, well, clearly you shouldn't have had this, like Nazi Sympathizer Simulator 3.0, It's not going to be that. It's going to be, it's going to be like Bioshock. Because it's like, this leans a little too heavily into Ayn Rand territory here, and, well, we don't like Ayn Rand around these parts. So,
I mean, it's like the fact that they want to rewrite 1984.
that's like a swirling Inception black hole of irony right there. Like the fact that people can't see that means A, they didn't read the damn book. But it's just like, really? Like, it was a warning, not an instruction manual, people. But yeah, things like that, and it won't take many of those before the gaming public's like, hey, wait a minute, I spent money on that game, I had invested time in that game. Fuck you for just deleting it or whatever. That's only going to have to happen a couple times before people are like, yeah, fuck this. Like, there's a bunch of old consoles laying around out there. Let's go buy them in the old games.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a time. It's time for a revival in old games. I still like the fact that the homebrew market is still very popular on NES, Super NES, stuff like that. I like to see a revival now. I like to see, and I don't doubt it'll ever happen, but I'd even like to see Nintendo actually endorse some sort of revival of older games.
Yeah.
Maybe it's even not so much, okay, they're releasing this on, older cartridges, but we're also releasing it on like the Nintendo Switch store where you can get on there and play them.
Yeah.
Because, I don't know. There's a reason why the unboxing videos are very popular because people want to look back on a time that they look upon more fondly, which is being able to get a game. I mean, being able to, you know, bring home something like this and actually be excited about it. Now it's just like, man, it's PS4, it's like, or PS5 or whatever the hell we're on now.
I think we're on 5.
Yeah.
The newest one I own is 2, so I'm not the person to ask.
But
and mine takes like 2 hours to boot up. Like if I intended on playing a game, I'd start it before I came over here.
I mean, look at the games back here, and you see stuff like Super Metro, which again I mentioned being my favorite. But then you see like Donkey Kong Country, and just they took a console that really wasn't able to do those kinds of graphics, but they found a way of getting it to do that. I believe they used a Silicon graphics machines to do that, to get the sprites and everything to work. But they're just like kind of like Mortal Kombat, where it's just like a pre-rendered but then animated.
Yeah, speaking of, I can't find my copy of Mortal Kombat 10 for the 360. I was going to play it with William, my nephew, there the other day, and because it's one of the games I know I have that's 2 players that his Xbox One can also play. I go to look for it and nowhere to be found. Which means I let someone borrow it and they never returned it, and now I don't remember who it was, and so now I'm kind of pissed off about that.
And there's a question I want to ask the fine folks out there, and I want to hear some comments on.
Any of you that are listening, have you ever borrowed a game from either of us and never returned it? That's your question?
No.
No. That was worth a shot.
That was a Mortal Kombat question, though. Is that I've seen, I mean, barring the Nintendo Switch version of Mortal Kombat 1, which is supposedly an atrocious port of the game, I'm looking at the gameplay footage of Mortal Kombat 1 and Mortal Kombat 11, and for some reason, I'm strangely finding that Mortal Kombat 11 looks like the better of game, like the better looking game.
It could.
And I don't know if that's just me or if that's just, maybe the facial expressions are better, but maybe it's just getting into the uncanny valley where you make something like, I thought like people talk about the Polar Express being uncanny, and I'm like, it is, but like it still also looks animated. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe that's what I'm seeing with Mortal Kombat 1 is that it's like so close to the uncanny valley that's like it looks like people, but not quite. But I just don't think I don't know. I don't think even the graphics look as good.
Yeah, I haven't compared the two, so I couldn't say. But
Well, is it 10 or I think it's 10. Isn't 10 the one that's got Predator and Alien in it? One of them has both either 9 or 10, one of the two.
yeah, maybe. I'm assuming the one I have is 10. It might have been 9, but I think it was 10.
Because one of them has Leatherface. Because that one also has Leatherface, Jason, which means you can have like the Xenomorph versus Leatherface, which I don't think would be much of a battle, but
No, I would think like approximately 95% of the time the Xenomorph should win that one. Like now, if Leatherface gets lucky, somehow doesn't just get randomly surprised by the alien, which is his preferred method of attack, and could actually like get a swing in with the chainsaw.
yep.
I mean, the chainsaw should go right through the alien, destroying the chainsaw and possible Leatherface in the process because of the acidic blood. But
Yep. That would be that's one thing that would have been funny on the Nostromo. I was like, they're like, oh, look at the acid blood. And all of a sudden, just like vacuum of space.
yeah, well, that was a concern. Remember?
Yeah.
Because they start chasing to see how many decks it's going to burn through, and they're concerned it's going to hit the outer hull.
Which, I mean, at least they did get that right, because I don't care how acidic its blood is. After a while, it's going to become a new substance with the mix of...
Yeah, it's losing the hydrogen atoms, I believe, is what acid does to do its thing.
Well, it's the same thing. Well, like in Chernobyl, the elephant's foot is a new substance because of the radiation and all the stuff that it melted into. It became a new component. Now it's still supposedly liquid and still flowing, but just very slowly.
Yeah,
And I don't imagine Kyle Hill's going to be down there kissing that.
probably not. Probably not a good idea.
And yeah, if you haven't watched our last podcast, we did talk about the actual good things about nuclear energy. There are negatives, obviously, but that's usually caused by mismanagement and inferior reactors and all sorts of other stuff. So I don't know. We've rambled on about stuff, and
Well, is that it for gaming?
we were talking gaming.
Yeah.
Damn. Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, we've still got streaming to cover, and then possibly miscellaneous.
Well, streaming's easy for me because, like I said, it's been streaming mostly just random channels on YouTube. I guess the channels I can say, as I said, tested with Adam Savage, Eckhart's Ladder, because I always like his Star Wars content, In Deep Geek, and a couple of the other ones for Lord of the Rings.
Oh, I actually should have mentioned something back in books. Sorry, and this is only just a one-off for those of you who follow Marvel Comics and the omnibus printings. There's a gentleman I follow on YouTube, Near Mint Conditions, the name of his channel. It's the Uncanny Omar, and he's got an in with someone at Marvel. I can't remember the gentleman's name. It's not like it's a big secret. Like he says, David Gabriel is his name. And so he gets previews like way in advance. Like he's already talking about the books that are going to come out like I think next October. is in like 11 months from now. Because the way these work is there's a couple companies that you can pre-order these books like 8 or 9 months in advance. So, but that's to guarantee you get a copy. Because when they print them, they look at the pre-orders, then they add a percentage to that, and then that's the print run. So by getting on the pre-order, this is when the pre-order actually goes to the printer, not the pre-order from what was printed. So like yours is one of the ones in the count to be printed. Anyway, people have been wondering for a while how they're going to keep doing the X-Men omnibus prints because the ones the Stan Lee era and up through I think Roy Thomas, it's the first 66 issues. Those are in 2 books, and it's just X-Men 1 and 2 Silver Age books. Then the book went into reprints until issue 94, I believe. Yes, believe it or not, at one point in time, X-Men is actually a very low-selling book. So then with X-Men 94, well, Giant Size X-Men #1 relaunched the line, introduced the new team. That's where Wolverine, Colossus, Storm, Nightcrawler, and I'm forgetting somebody in there, Thunderbird, forgetting him because he died like 3 issues later, Sunfire, that's where they all show up. So then issue 94 is where Chris Claremont took over the run, and that's where the omnibus books go to the labeling of Uncanny X-Men, and there were 4 volumes. But then there was all these events that you really need a whole bunch of other books for the event to make any damn sense, and that's like the Mutant Massacre, the the Mutant Massacre is the big one. I'll think of the names of some of the others here in a minute, but it's unimportant. So past a certain point, it's all a bunch of event books, and then like to capture everything that you need beforehand, they have like preludes. They have like prelude to the Mutant Massacre, then the Mutant Massacre. All the mutants, prelude to Fall of the Mutants is before that. And those books all just go in sequence, and it's an unbroken chain of all the issues going between the events. Well, the problem was, how are they going to jump from 4 to the Mutant Massacre? And the solution was Volume 5. But then it led to what, are they just going to make a 6, cut out all the crap that you from the other lines and just have the X-Men issues? Or what are they going to do here? And it would appear that what they're going to do is they're going to release a prelude to the Mutant Massacre book, which is everything that's in Uncanny X-Men Volume 5, plus the first part of X Factor, the first 8 issues, which haven't been collected, but up through 9 through 42 are in all those other event books. So you don't need the X Factor omnibus if you have the others, because now 1 to 42 will be in an unbroken chain in the event books. But it really pissed off a whole lot of people, me included, once I began to look and see what's in this new book in Volume 5, realizing that literally everything in Volume 5 is in this other book, plus what we need to have the beginning of X Factor and some other things. And it's like Volume 5 is just a waste of fucking money. Which, for whatever it's worth, it's very close to us right now.
Oh.
It's in that box in your hallway.
So is the Mutant Massacre, is that the slaughtering the Morlocks?
That's when Sinister sends the Marauders into the tunnels to wipe out the Morlocks, yeah. And funny enough, like the reason why that involves a bunch of other books is because the people on Thor and a couple of the other books were talking to Chris Claremont, like, man, that sounds like an awesome thing. Like, we get in on that? Like, yeah, sure. And so there's like random Thor issues tied into it, where Thor's down there in the tunnels fighting people, and just, as I think it was Walt Simonson. Yeah, I think it's starting with Simonson's run on Thor. I think he's the one, and Louise Simonson and a few others.
Is that where Morrow was originally featured heavily, or
no? Morrow doesn't come along until the 90s. Some of the Morlocks somehow wound up in some crazy alternate dimension that Mikhail Rasputin created. And she grew up there and eventually fights the X-Men initially, then joins them. Then gets exposed to some machine, I think on the Skrull homeworld, that makes her not ugly. And I think that's how she looks now. Because, like, she only had, like, patches of hair and, like, random bones kind of coming out up here. And it made it so she looked a little bit more normal,
yeah.
I don't know. I'm sure there's some kind of comment about being who you really are versus superficial in there somewhere. But it's also kind of like in the X-Men movies where Storm's all like, "Oh no, we're just fine, Rogue." Rogue's like, "I can fucking kill people just by touching them, woman. You control the weather." Like, there's a little bit of a difference in our powers here. Like, I might actually want to cure mine and not just be, a plague upon humanity. Whereas, you can make it pretty in snow and stuff.
Yeah, or you could be like, what's this? The one kid that would just spontaneously combust randomly, and
Yeah,
what? Was that where Wolverine took him into a cave and just murdered him?
yeah, I'm pretty sure. I don't know if they've resurrected him yet or not on Krakoa. Hey, they've resurrected all kinds of people on Krakoa that, like, you think, like, I don't know about that, but they do. So, yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to mention that for those of you who happen to follow that kind of thing, because at some point I'm going to talk about those books a little bit more. Because I was waiting, I've read the first two Uncanny X-Men Omnibus editions, and I have the third and fourth one, and I've got all the Mutant Massacre and Fall of the Mutant stuff. I've got like all the way up to where Jim Lee comes onto the book, which is like the early 90s, if I recall correctly, late 80s, early 90s. And I'm only missing a few things to have everything from the start to the Age of Apocalypse, which is like the mid 90s. That's like 30 years of X-Men crap. And I was waiting to start into the others till I had volume 5, because once I start, I'm going to go. And so now I finally have volume 5, but then I see this and I'm like, oh, damn it. Do I really need those first 8 issues of X Factor?
Yes.
Yes, of course I do, because I've got 9 through 42 from the other books. So yeah, but at the very least, now that I've seen that video, I know for sure I don't need Volume 1 of X Factor. So there is that. That's some upside. But yeah, I do have some of the later volumes of X Factor, though, because Peter David eventually came onto the book, and he's got a couple. He's got one of the weird ones where, like, his Volume 1 and his Volume 2, there's a huge gap in between them because someone else was writing the book. And so, like, his Volume 1 and Volume 2 are not sequential. Whereas, like, his Hulk volumes 1 through, I think, 5 are sequential. Because that is, like, apparently the pinnacle writing for the Hulk, the Peter David arc. That's where, like, the Maestro shows up and just all kinds of stuff. Not read it myself, but from everything I ever hear, like, that's the Hulk arc to read. So, maybe someday. Right now, I've got to get through those and my weird zany books that I bought that, like, Knights of Pendragon, or is one of those, like, British Marvel comics that's kind of tied into Captain Britain. And it's just kind of like, wow, they will never reprint this. Like, it's now or never on this one. I got to pull the trigger. Or Savage Avengers, where Conan's part of the team. So it's like, Marvel might lose the rights to Conan again, which they have already. So I don't know if they can ever reprint that book. So yeah, that was a good call, hopefully. But anyway, that's probably about it for books. I talk more about that stuff later sometime. Now we'll go on to streaming. So in a bit of a follow-up to a previous video, I finally watched the rest of the second Castlevania series, Nocturne. Now it's only the first season and it ends on a cliffhanger, but it was overall pretty good. Um, some things happen in it that were definitely interesting. Uh, one of the night creatures, which are supposed to be, made from human corpses with a demon from hell possessing them. Well, one of them still has its original inhabitant possessing it. So it's a night creature, but with a human soul. So that was kind of interesting. And you got the latest member of the Belmont clan, like in episode 6 or 7. Now, just a moment, folks. Well, I saw the second one. That was the important one.
What the?
Yeah.
Sorry, we have local elections, and they just was reviewing the results.
Hmm. See that.
Yeah, that looks like a. It's almost like. Eh. Well, interesting.
Yeah.
It looked like it was a sweep almost.
Yeah, we won't go into that on here, but
Yeah, we're not going into politics, but I mean, local mayor race. So
yes, the polling place is quite close. I walked there and voted before we started filming.
yes,
So.
I mean it's literally next door. So, anyways, sorry.
Yeah, so Castlevania Nocturne overall is good. I still, since I know some of the historical background to the slave revolt in Haiti, like the way they're painting it, like first and foremost, to be crystal clear, I'm not going to shed a tear for any slave owners that get killed in a slave revolt. The problem is they killed everyone that was white during the slave revolt, for those of you that don't know, and a lot of mixed people too, which would have had to have included the vast majority of the population that weren't slave owners, and a whole bunch of kids and whatnot. And so this is trying to portray all this in a good light, and I'm like, I don't know about that. Like, rebelling and, ending slavery, yes, totally, absolutely. Going after the slave owners themselves? Sure, I don't care. The slave owners, they probably got it coming. But the let's kill everyone else part, and it tries to gloss over like, oh, but most of them were vampires, and it's like, but they weren't. Like, so anyway, that just kind of hit me the wrong way. And then the character from that is there now in France is sitting there. The Belmont character runs for his life at one point because the vampire that killed his mom when he was like 8 shows back up. And she's like, oh, he's a coward. And someone even tries to explain it to her later. And she's like, oh, he doesn't know what it is to be this, that, and the other. And it's like, look, I get it. You went through some shit. You were a slave. No one's going to say that you had an easy life, for sure. You definitely went through some shitty things. We even see some of them. But, like, when the person that kills someone else's mom just randomly shows up and you're like, oh, fuck him, he's a coward. It's like, you're not making many friends here. And you are not even remotely close to strong enough to stop this problem. Plus, this being a Castlevania series, you won't be the one stopping the problem. Like, just straight up, it's going to be the Belmont kid. Because that's just the way it goes. And I really love towards the end when this character, Alucard, shows up in the final episode in the final 5 minutes. And, he mentions who he is to the vampires he's about to fight. He's the son of Dracula, and this character that's acted like pretty much a know-it-all, and oh, I'm so tough. It's like, who the hell's Dracula? I'm just like, and you're ignorant too. It's like, that sounds about right. So yeah, don't really care for her character for the most part. Hell, even in the show, like the ancestors were like, look, you need to tone it down just a bit. Like, she's there in the astral plane, like, well, I can't hear any of them, and the one that's talking is like, because you're not listening. Like, shut up and listen. So yeah. Then the big bad is Elizabeth Bathory, who they're saying in this one is like thousands of years old, and drank the blood of Sekhmet, the Egyptian goddess. So yeah, she's pretty powerful. Like she uses magic to cause an eclipse, so that the vampires can just like roam free and start terrorizing everybody. And like once she goes to like Super Saiyan mode during the eclipse, she becomes like 12 feet tall. So yeah, she probably actually did.
Well, Owen always brings up a good point with every time we talk about that. He's like, well, all the vampires should die when the moon lights out too.
It's direct sunlight.
It is still direct sunlight.
No, it's a reflection off the moon. It's direct sunlight.
I know, but they shouldn't make a difference. You're reflecting photons.
It's not the photons. It's nothing to do with the radiation or anything like that. It's because the sun is the source of light and life and good. It's a holy symbol. That's why.
No white people walking around with crosses all the time.
Yeah. Because to a vampire, from a true believer, it's literally like the power of faith. The power of God is like, because they're an unholy abomination.
So would the power of Christ compel me?
If you're a vampire, it could.
Okay.
But depending on the vampire, that's highly dependent on the faith of the individual, but also of the vampire when they were alive. And some of them, like if it's say someone who is a Muslim in life and becomes a vampire, the cross might not do anything to them, but the crescent moon would. Because it has to do with their belief in God as
So I
well.
was getting Moon Knight to come in and
Yeah, well, I mean, there's always just the chop them to pieces thing.
um, like I say, there was actually a little bit of Castlevania stuff that I streamed, and that was I watched the You Can Beat Video Games episode of Super Castlevania 4. And I don't know if it's actually listed in Nintendo Power this way or in any sort of documentation, but uh, Super Castlevania 4 gives you the ability to whip your whip in all sorts of directions. You can also hold down the attack button and just go like this. And so
I'm not gonna lie, that's how some of the fights in this show come across sometimes.
it's like, and then you didn't see that. It's just me flipping my wrist up and down. It's like it's not actually like whipping like a whip would do. Um, but
it is all on the wrist, though, Jim.
In the way that the YouTuber does it, and like I said, in the YouTuber's channel is You Can Beat Video Games. Um, the way that he words it is he calls it the flaccid whip technique, because you can just drop your whip down, and if an enemy runs into it, they die. So you don't even have, you're not even whipping with it. You're just like draping it down, and somebody will run into it. Or like Medusa heads are coming, and Medusa heads in the original game were a pain in the butt because they would be the weird like wave patterns, but you just flaccid whip like this, and they just fly into it and die immediately. Um, but seeing them go through that game, and I'm like, I've never made it through this game, and he's just strolling through it like it's nothing, and half it's like, okay, here's where you do it. And then just realizing like some of the stuff that I'm just like, I was always, he's like, oh yeah, when you walk across these platforms, don't jump. As soon as you jump, they flip on you. And the secret is just to walk across them. It's like in the first Ninja Turtles, there was this like gap in the ceiling thing where you're supposed to like you just walk across. And you're like, you're not supposed to jump. You're like, no, just walk. Because you would jump, you'd fall back down, then you have to go back to the level. All the enemies respawn. It was a pain in the ass, but yeah, no. As I was like, I watched that, I'm like, is it really that simple? And then like all the bosses, like, oh, you just got to do this, and it's like you beat almost every single boss. Like Dracula's just a cakewalk in that. So I feel really stupid now when I have it. When I look at that, I'm like, I've played this a few times. I've never gotten very far, and it's like, is it really that simple? And it's just like,
Yeah, well, there was one other thing with Nocturne that 4 seasons of the other show, as far as if I recall correctly, never actually showed, and this one only starts to show in the finale for season 1. Is one of the vampires actually turning someone else into a vampire? Because all the vampires are all vampires already, and you've got like a handful where you see that they've bitten somebody, and like in one of the flashbacks in this, you see the after effect, but here's actually seeing someone being turned, so you actually see what it takes. Which, for what it's worth, it's biting them, and then they have to drink the vampire's blood, which is what it usually is in vampire things. But but we don't see to the point that she does turn. That'll happen in the second part, presumably. But yeah, it's nice seeing Alucard back, which maybe Dracula will show up too and fight Elizabeth.
which Belmonts do you get to see?
This is
Because I know you got Simon and Trevor, and there's Richter.
This is Richter.
Yeah, Richter's like the backflipping crazy man from Symphony of the Night.
This is Richter, and I've seen people post online that some of these characters are from Symphony of the Night. Because there's one vampire who's an Aztec, and I found out finally like why he killed Richter's mom. It's because he had a lover who was I think he said he was an Apache, and even though he was a Native American, like he fought for the U.S. during the Revolution to overthrow the British, and this guy, I think Aurochs is his name, turned him, and then she killed him, so he killed her, and he is sleeping with this Templar guy. And so he's kind of like, so after he tells him the story, he's like, so you going to turn me? He's like, no, I don't love you. I was like, damn, that's cold. Although what he does later on in the show kind of proves that he's a lying sack of shit. He definitely does love him because he saves him from certain death at one point. Because he, or Aurochs the vampire, does not want Elizabeth Bathory to ascend to whatever she's going to. I don't know if that's purely because he wants that kind of power, or if he's just like, nah, screw it, no one should have that, or he just doesn't want to bow to someone else. But whatever his motivations, he eventually starts helping Belmont and his crew to try to overthrow her.
I just want to see that they actually bring the corniest line from Symphony of the Night into. So I was having to look this up because I don't remember the exact words. Because it's Richter and Dracula in the beginning of Symphony of the Night exchanging words, and this is before Alucard shows up and gets all of his power stripped, and he has to regain him Metroidvania style, as they call it. But the Dracula's thing is, "What is a man?" and throws down his goblet. "A little miserable pile of secrets. But enough talk. Have at you."
I have seen that in people's signature lines, and I've always wondered what that was from. But yeah, so season 1 was good.
But they need to put that line in there just for no reason at all. People would be like, but instead of having like the next line of dialogue, just be like, "The hell was that?"
Yeah, so I'm like I said, I want to see where season 2 goes. Having never played the games, and from everything I see online, this is literally like some other plot that they just like stapled Castlevania names to it. Well, that was the other thing. Is some of the people that are helping Belmont are like pro the French Revolution. And I'm just like, do the writers of this show actually read what happened in either of these revolutions? Because like it's showing like the beheadings, at the guillotine, and I'm like, they know this didn't end well, right? That they just like massacred a whole bunch of innocent people, and then they themselves got massacred because they were assholes.
Yep.
And like, then what? Napoleon took back over or something, if I recall correctly. I don't know. I'm not an expert on French history. I'm probably way off on that. But yeah.
Yeah,
And so like,
one thing I know about French history is French fries. So
you mean the things from Belgium? But yeah, they it's like one of the bad guys is a priest who is in league with Bathory because they want to restore what was, because the revolution wants to take out the church. And like, man, does this show just shit on Christianity at every chance it gets?
Well, I mean,
And I'm like, like, obviously the guy's made a deal with the demons. Like, he's clearly loopy, so sure, have at it. But it's like, like, I like where the show is going with some things, but some other things were just like, you are aware that, like, last I saw, over 90% of the world believes in something,
Oh, that doesn't surprise me.
like the atheist approach, and I mean no disrespect to any atheist. I want to be crystal clear about that. It's very clearly a minority opinion, and it's not growing. It's shrinking. If anyone actually looks at the numbers at least the ones I've seen, because people, if you think about it, if you have two atheist parents, there's at least the chance you're going to convert to anything, because how do you instill believing in nothing into somebody? That's a choice you have to come to pretty much, at least in my experience. So, whereas the other, you can, instill that in your children. Like, you can instill skepticism, sure. But, I'm just saying, I've seen the people I never ever thought would convert, like Alice Cooper, like the thing I sent you the other day. Like, it just blew me away. I was like, Alice Cooper, really, of all people, never would have guessed. I'm saying this as someone that's agnostic at best. Just anyway, talked about religion. Jim, you sure you don't want to get into politics?
Well, no, I was actually going to get into religion as well, because it actually made me think of the Van Helsing anime, where it was the Protestants were recruited Alucard to fight other vampires for him. And one of the things that they have to go up against is the Catholic religion, who's also hunting vampires, but also like, you've got one there fighting for your side.
Yeah.
And it's uh, It's one I'm gonna have to rewatch again because it's only 13 episodes. I thought it was longer than
Yeah,
that.
well, that's kind of the position the priest is in because he's like, look, I have to defend the church, and like, this is the only way I see to do it is to pair up with the vampires, and I because he's the one making the night creatures with a machine that was made in hell.
Oh, yeah, knows one does. I mean, I've got one over here if you need it.
And like the Templars are all behind him. What breaks the one Templar's faith in him is finding out he has a daughter. Not the rest of it. Not the in league with demons, not the machine from hell, but the fact that he slept with a woman and has a daughter. That's what he had a problem with. And this is the night that's sleeping with the vampire guy, the Aztec vampire. And it's just like, what is going on here? You know, there's just parts of this show that, like I said, a little sketchy. Overall, it's good, but
No, there was a speaking of, you're talking Aztec God. I was watching a thing where they were talking uh, best depiction of a certain deity, and one of them was
Quetzalcoatl,
was the best depiction of Anubis.
Anubis,
Yes,
the Egyptian god.
of death.
Well,
And what people said was that you know uh, that they would always portray Anubis as this evil person. And they're like, well, no, he was the guard. He was like he would walk the people to the afterlife, kind of the judge.
right. It's the same problem that people make whenever they depict Hades. Hades isn't evil because he's the god of the underworld. Like, he's pretty much indifferent to what happens in the underworld. Hades, you know, if you want to say Hades is evil, it's because of how he tricked Persephone into becoming his wife. And even there, that was more like, you know, he asked Zeus for Zeus's daughter's hand in marriage, and Zeus was like, sure. And then Persephone's mom was like, hold the fuck up. Which, by the way, that's the Greek version of how we have the seasons, in case you don't know. So Hades tricked Persephone into coming to the underworld, marries her, and so the deal that got worked out was that Persephone would spend half of the year in the mortal realm and in Olympus and all that, and the other half in the underworld. When she's in the mortal realm, it's the spring and the summer. When she's in the underworld, it's the fall and the winter. Because her mom is, I want to say Demeter, but I could be wrong, and she controls the weather. You know, and the reason that Zeus even like took her up on anything is because she was like, "All right, well, if you're gonna let Persephone marry your brother, like, I'm just fuck it. All the planets in the mortal world are gonna die." And the mortal's like, "Hold up, Zeus. I know this whole relationship we have isn't great, but like we're all going to die if you don't do something. No one will worship you anymore. That's a problem. All right, time for the people's court here on Olympus. All right, well, I did tell my brother that he could marry her." And Mom's like, "What?" He goes, "Well, I'm her dad. Like, so yeah, I could do that kind of thing. But I get it. You're a little pissed, and it kind of sounds like he tricked her. So we'll work something out here, you know."
Yeah, but I mean, to that point, just because you're the embodiment of death does not make you an evil person. Because
Right, because they conflate it with death, like the entity that from the Black Plague is depicted as the Reaper. You know, it's come to take your soul and dragging you to hell and all this, that, and the other.
no, the Reaper is supposed to be the person that escorts you after death.
Yeah, well.
Not. Yes, it is the omen of death, but it's not the person that I mean, that would be like if you look at the four horsemen of the apocalypse. It's they're the ones that cause the death, and then then Reaper's the one that takes you down and escorts you and is there with you, so you're not going alone. Now, what happens if you don't have the money to pay the ferryman?
You don't get across.
Where do you get the money at if you're dead?
That I don't. Well, it's the coins that put in your eyes.
Oh yeah, because you have the two. That's why it's cost two. Yeah.
Yeah, that's to cross the river Styx. But yeah, even if you do like the underworld in Greek mythology sucks. Like unless you were like a hero of some kind, you're just like one of the mindless dead, just kind of milling about. Like Hades doesn't give a shit what's happening to you. Persephone barely gives a shit. She's playing her own games too. But yeah, like if you're one of the heroes though, now you got to understand in Greek mythology, hero does not mean the same thing we define it as.
Does it mean a wrap that you put meat in?
No. It's a doer of great deeds, but great does not mean good. Great means fantastic. So like, I don't remember who it is, but there's one of the Greek heroes is known for like murdering a school full of children. Like that's what he did, and it's like,
it's great.
Yeah, like it was one of those like I think we lost something somewhere in there.
Well, I mean, technically,
Hercules killed his family.
well, he also cleaned his stables too.
Yeah, and then like to make up for that, that's why he had to do the 12 labors. And then upon death, gained full divinity. Um,
I still don't understand what cleaning the stables would have been. Like everything else, like okay, I get, like he did some really fantastic things. No, I also don't get what's the boar. Uh, there's a there's the boar that he because I get the lion because the lion was terrorizing things and doing things and I don't know.
yeah, it's hard to say. It's like it's an entirely different culture that had different emphasis on certain values than we do. Some common values, obviously, because like all cultures do have some common values, and we built our culture off of the Roman civilization predominantly, with several later European ideals, and the European society and the Roman civilization was built largely off Greek ideals. So, we just keep coming back to the Roman Empire, though.
Oh yeah,
But yeah, I mean, I find the Greek mythology stuff fascinating, and you know,
I only do because I played all the God of War games.
well,
When I killed Persephone, and
yeah,
then Hades was a little pissed about that.
yeah, I would be too.
Because then you use her dead body to like open a door because because she's in a casket and you use it like to swing it like a pendulum.
Yeah, uh, like I said, I find that you know mythology fascinating. The Egyptian mythology is interesting. It's a little different there, but um, until I took a class on mythology, like I didn't realize how that it evolved a lot over time. Because like there are a number of temples to Zeus, but there's only a handful, or maybe just the one to Hera. Because go far enough back, Hera is not depicted as Zeus's wife. That's like a later like revelation in their beliefs. And so that's one of the weird things that kind of shifts there over time. And it sounds like, if I understand correctly from the mythology, how Zeus wound up the Sky Father and Hades wound up control the underworld and Poseidon wound up over the seas. They literally drew lots as to who was going to do what. Like I would not have let that happen if I was Zeus, because he is the powerful one, because he's the one who survived Kronos, so and then killed Kronos or castrated, depending on which version you go with, one or the other.
Well,
And by that I mean like the depiction is literally,
in the God of War games, his punishment was to carry the Pandora's Temple upon his back and wander the wasteland.
you know,
And then when he screwed that up, then he was put down in Tartarus.
yeah,
But, no, the the one thing I remember about playing God of War and Persephone was that at one point you kill her, and then you're in oh Islam, Islam,
Elysium.
yes, and he's there with his daughter who he murdered when Ares gave him the powers of that he gave him. Accidentally killed his wife and child by accident somehow. I don't know how that worked, but uh, has the worst quick time event I've ever played in a game, and that is he's down there with his daughter and realizes that he's got to leave because if not, all hell's gonna literally break loose. So the quick time event is pushing your daughter away like a bastard father and pushing her to the ground and then leaving. The worst quick time event ever in a game.
Oh, that's rough.
Oh, yeah, it's terrible. Because that's like his whole driving factor to want to kill the gods is that they were supposed to take away the pain. And pretty much their idea of taking it away is saying, we forgive you for what you've done.
Well,
I think he was more expecting to at least like wipe his memory. Like, well, no, you can't do that. You're the one that did it. All we can say is that we forgive you.
yeah, yeah.
And it's
Well, they got that part about Greek mythology right. Like, there's a whole lot of like, be careful what you wish for, and like prophecies that like you can't take them the way they are. Like they definitely mean something else,
Yep.
or like bizarre irony, like with Oedipus and his dad. So it's been a while since I've read it, but I believe Oedipus's father was told that like his son was going to kill him, something like that. So like they sent their son away someplace else, and like well, they told a soldier to take him out to die. Well, the soldier couldn't bring himself to do that, and either he or another soldier took him like a couple cities over and raised him, and so then like he goes back to the city he's from without knowing he's from there.
Yep.
Comes across his dad out in the middle of nowhere who acts like a jackass towards him, if I remember correctly, and so he murders him, and it's like, oh, look at that, the circle of life, huh? And then goes and marries his mom.
Yep.
But doesn't know it's his mom. Then once he does find out it's his mom, he gouges his own eyes out, and she does something. And it's just all it's literally a Greek tragedy. Yeah, yeah. That's we should definitely do what I saw someone recommended one time online, where we get people together that vaguely remember Greek mythology and try to cobble something coherent together out of it. But anyway, also on streaming, moving away from Castlevania and somehow into Greek mythology. I also watched the first episode of Miss Marvel, which is entertaining. I'm gonna watch the rest of it. Uh, I didn't really see anything wrong with it. It was a perfect example of what I talked about way back at the beginning of all this. There's all kinds of diversity in this show, and it's not pandering. Like Kamala Khan is born to a Muslim household. I believe they're Pakistani, and like yeah, obviously they talk a little bit about their culture. This is only the first episode, so they talk a little bit about their culture, but for the most part, it depicts them as, and I hate to use this term, but average people. They're just people living their lives. They just have a different faith, and they're from a different part of the world. Now they're in New York, so I
But
think New York.
but they took an existing character that had that culture already built up around them and
Right.
built a show about it.
Right.
And and I think that's our big thing is that there is all this material out there, and we would be 100% for them going and saying, okay, we're going to make a show about this character. This character has this, this faith, this ethnicity, this whatever, and actually bring it out there. But it's it's not under. I just don't understand why, like an existing character, they feel has to be transformed versus taking someone that has all of that built up around them based on those things. Now, don't get me wrong. When the comic was originally written, now Kamala Khan's a very, very newer character, but let's say that let's say it's an older character. Let's say it's Black Panther. There is some updating that has to be done because some of the original writers maybe didn't know as much about the culture or stuff like that, or there were things that were gotten wrong. And you revisit that and you say, yeah. But what they should have done is like what they did with the Atlanteans. I mean, need more, you know.
Jim, don't even bring up the Atlanteans. Like, that's a very sore subject with me. I think it's just dumb through and through what they did there, but go on.
But there was no need to, I mean, they could have injected some of the, like they could have, actually it kind of makes me think of what they did with Predator, where they showed like all those convergent, like things like the temples all look the same and different things. And you can say, oh, like a lot of that stuff, maybe came from some of the Atlanteans, or the Atlanteans adopted some of that stuff, and
Well, it's just that one in particular is quite egregious.
What could I just wonder if the Atlanteans couldn't have like just like built-in diversity being or would that had to have been?
Well,
you know what I mean?
I get what you're saying, and that they would if there were more half breeds like Namor, or like Namor, because he's half human, half Atlantean. Because the Atlanteans were the city of Atlantis that was in like around the Romans and the Greeks. Because like Namor's name in reverse is the word Roman.
Yeah.
Like that's not an accident.
No.
So it would have been the people indigenous to that area, which is the Mediterranean. So they over time they might become lighter because they're underwater and whatnot because there's no sunlight. But they'd have a more olive complexion. There could be people of African descent there because there were people of African descent in the Roman Empire. and also if it's physically still near that area when they go to the coast, it's going to be the coast of Europe and Africa. So, yeah, there easily could be.
And I think that's the way they probably should have approached that. But
And,
no,
and even without that, you always have the whole like, well, they rule the oceans, like they can make port anywhere, you
yeah,
know.
no, I agree with that. I just like the fact that they took a character and said, okay, let's go with that. And I mean, there's plenty of others. I mean, we did it with Luke Cage. Luke Cage was a decent show.
Actually, I should point out most Atlanteans actually are of color. They're blue. I forgot that part. Namor is actually the exception.
He's the mutant.
Yes, because he's mutant. Those little winged feet.
Yes.
Which I'm not going to lie. Before the movie, I never envisioned those flapping whenever he flies. Like, because it's a comic panel, they're static.
Yeah.
I figured they were just kind of there, like a symbol. I didn't ever get that, like, no, that's how he flies. It's like, no.
No, lift
I'm
doesn't
I'm
work that
I'm
way.
gonna need like a videotape of Stan Lee explaining that yes, that's what it's supposed to be for me to even consider actually accepting that. Because otherwise, like, it's a really obvious. Well, I'm not going to say an Achilles heel; it's an Achilles wing, but because it's right there.
But it's just I'm trying to think of other characters that they haven't come up, haven't used yet. That would be, um, well, I mean, if we finally get to the X Men, I mean, there's all sorts of stuff they could, like I said, they could bring in Alpha Flight. There's some diversity there.
Yeah, I mean, like to your point, like with the X Men, you've got you have Bishop, you have his sister Shard, you have Apocalypse as African, even though his skin's gray. Like he does have, if he's drawn properly, he has African features like he should.
Thunderbird,
You have Thunderbird as a Native American. You have Warpath, his brother later on. Uh, you have, even though they're white, there are other cultures. You have Colossus, he's a Russian. You have Nightcrawler, who's German but is now blue, as is Mystique's son. We have Storm, obviously.
yep.
Um, if they go deep enough in the cut to get Dr. Cecilia Reyes, you have her. She's black. I don't know. There's a few Hispanic members. I'm trying to think who that. Well, Strong Guy is. I think. I think he's Hispanic.
Yep.
Based on his name. Well, it's Hispanic or maybe Greek or Italian. Isn't his first name Guido? Remember right? Pretty sure it is. And I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I'm not trying to like crap all over Mediterranean
You can
peoples.
understand a lot of this is off the cuff, just us blabbing about stuff.
Yeah. I don't know. There's other members of the team though that would fit this bill that I'm trying to think of. And I'm totally spacing it, and so now they're like, "Oh yeah, listen to this guy. There's only like two black members of the team. Listen to this asshole." I want to say Maggot is South African, but his skin's a different color, and his features are kind of exaggerated, so it's difficult to say like ethnic wise what he would be. Sunfire's Japanese. Silver Samurai's Japanese. Well, that one's kind of a little on the nose. Long Shots from Another Dimension, ruled by Mojo. Mojo's an alien. Spiral's an alien. You got all kinds of aliens. Landra and the whole Shi'ar cohort.
They actually don't state his, at least on the Wikipedia, they don't state Strong Guy's ethnicity, but it is. I'm assuming it is because it's Guido.
Yeah, I assume it's pronounced Guido.
Carosia?
Now, but yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's characters I'm completely forgetting because there's only about 50 different X-Men teams. Now, in fairness to criticisms towards the X-Men, the original 5 were all white people plus Xavier.
Sunfire is.
Yeah, he's Japanese. Banshee's Irish. And Siren would be Irish descent. Black Tom Cassidy's Irish. Unlike the way Deadpool keeps mentioning him in Deadpool 2, he is in fact a white guy from Ireland. So, because of the way he kept calling out Cable. And he does actually have powers, and he's like definitely has a thick Irish accent and everything. Yeah. No, Magneto. He's Jewish. I believe would be German. Depending on which name we're going. Well, I think either way. I think they're sticking with the Max Eisenhart name instead of
Eric Lyncher.
Eric Lyncher. Yeah. Then his son, or used to be his son, or maybe still his son. I don't know. Pietro Maximoff and Wanda Maximoff, who are not in love in the MCU.
Good.
I could see the comment coming.
I wasn't gonna say anything this time. I've stated that multiple times, and that's just.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I guess Apocalypse's wife Genesis and their first 4 kids, even though you can't see with any of them because they're all like distorted features, except for the one that's Death, who literally looks like Anubis. So, yep. Although his other kids are not, because 2 of his descendants are part of the X teams. Blink and Chamber are both his descendants. And Chambers British, and Blank is, I believe, based on her last name, supposed to be Scottish. It's Ferguson. So, and I have no idea what Celine is. She's a 12,000-year-old psionic vampire. So,
This one is.
Manette St. Croix is her.
So what we're saying is there is a lot.
Yeah, I'm just like, if you want diversity, like the X-Men's your team. Like, there's a lot of people from all over the damn place on that team. Kind of like how back in the 80s you wanted diversity, you wanted the G.I. Joe team.
Yeah, I mean, they were literally just, they weren't an American team.
Yeah, well, most of them were.
Yeah.
It wasn't until you get into guys like Big Ben that or like the October Guard, whenever they finally wrote them up as Joes instead of Soviets. But no, I mean, like on the main team, you got Roadblock, Doc, Iceberg, if I remember right. I think those are the ones that were mainly the main ones in the cartoon. Then you had Quick Kick. Now, Quick Kick's a little bit of a like there could be some stereotype stuff there. Like the argument, oh, I forgot Alpine. And the reason I forgot Alpine is because they still haven't made a damn figure of him in the classified line. I know they're going to make it a deluxe when I give him a bunch of climbing gear. I just know it, so it's going to cost like $35. But Alpine, him and Bazooka, like they were a great comedy duo there in the cartoon. Yeah, now Cobra looks monotone, but in terms of like backgrounds, they're actually very diverse. I think Cobra Commander is the only American in the high command. Destro's Scottish. The Baroness is, I believe, French. Tomax and Zaymot are Corsicans. Major Blood's an Australian.
What about Trouser Snake?
He's an American. Yeah, then Zartan, no one knows who or what Zartan is, and his memory is like scrambled eggs at this point. I think he's Australian, because I think his brother and sister have an Australian accent, but who knows? I don't know about Firefly offhand. He might be American. Storm Shadow is American, but of Japanese descent. So yeah, I mean, there's, Cobra, like I said, it looks monotone, but they're from all over the place.
That's because terror knows no bounds.
Yeah, well, I have noticed that in like some of the more recent iterations of that, they're now just an evil organization. Hasbro realized that, it was kind of cool back in the 80s to call them an evil terrorist organization determined to rule the world, but that word's gotten some really bad press for the last 30 years. I mean, like, not that it had a whole lot of good press before that, but it's gotten especially bad press, so, like, probably a good idea to drop that one and just say they're an evil organization determined to rule the world. Plus, most of their terrorism involved, like, either trying to extort billions from countries with crazy super weapons, or stealing money, or forming a rock band called Cold Slither to somehow steal money.
And then their most devious, which wasn't a plan of theirs at all, was to have the Viper come and wipe their windows.
Yeah. Oh, on the G.I. Joe Classifieds Reddit, he's a character they bring up all the time. Like, top 5 figures you want, it's like Nemesis Enforcer, Globulus, and the Viper, and they even have to explain for those people that don't know. Well, we already got Vipers. Like, no, that one guy, the old man, is who we're talking about.
The Vindo Viper.
Yeah. And then every once in a while, I get the guys. Wouldn't it be cool if they made a Cold Slither set? And everyone's like, it would be, but it would be like $200 because it's Hasbro, even though it's only 4 figures. They're like, oh, drum kits are expensive for 6-inch figures or some bullshit. They'll probably come with a whole stage is what they'll do.
That's why you put it as a Kickstarter.
Yeah, well, a Pulse thing, yeah, for Hasbro, but yeah. Yeah, that won't fund till the last minute, so I won't back it, and then I'll regret it.
Yeah.
No, the big thing right now is the Super 7 figures. Those are they're 3 3/4 inch figures, but they have the articulation of like the old Star Wars figures. So they only like the arms can move up and down at the shoulders, and then like the hips, and I'm assuming the head turns. I don't know, and they're still like $20. But they're gonna make. You remember the intro to like one of the first 2 movies? There was that giant round Cobra ship that had the Cobra and the head in the front, but it's just like a giant round like flying saucer kind of deal. It's only in the opening. It's not actually in any of the episodes. It gets blown up in the opening. They're crowdfunding that thing, and it's going to be like as big as this damn table. I saw it and I was like, like this is definitely unique. I'll give it that. But God, I just sold most of my small figures, and even there, they're like, yeah, we're also going to start trying to make new O-ring figures with all the articulation. And it's like, damn it. They're trying to pull me back in because they'll make figures of anybody. Like right now, like at Target, you can find Duke and Snake Eyes from the episode where they got captured and had to fight in the arena. They've got like the energy weapons and everything. They've got a figure. They got a figure set from it's the end of the first or second animated movie where the Cobra High Command they escape in disguise on the subway. So like the Baroness is dressed as a nurse, Destro's a construction worker, Cobra Commander's an old maid. They made a set of figures for those. All right, like they're making Python Patrol and Tiger Force figures of characters that were never part of either of those 2 sublines. They're making like generic Joe and Cobra soldiers, and to their credit, they're like white, black, Hispanic. They're several different types. And the female soldiers, but they're also making, so they got like the generic green shirts that you saw all the time, but also like sailors and airmen and all the other things you would need for an actual army. Just all kinds of zany shit like that. I look at them sometimes like, man, if these weren't $20 and had better articulation, you guys would have had me sold. But you didn't.
That's when they just need to bring back the USS Flag.
Oh, yes. the toy every G.I. Joe fan wished they had. Then as an adult, you're like, where the hell would I put that? It's 6 feet long. It's like one of the biggest toys ever made. It was only like $100, I think, at the time. Now, quite a bit more. I saw one at a convention a couple of years ago. Not put together, it's the box. You've seen a couple of them put together, though, with that toy store in Canada.
Yeah, well, that and I saw that a lot of people would also modify them because the height of the lower deck wasn't tall enough to fit some of the vehicles in, so they would actually build like an expansion to lift it up high enough so they could put like lighting into it and everything. And
well, I liked one comics. This came up on the G.I. Joe Classified thing. Like, so when are we going to see this thing in 6-inch scale? And everyone was like, what, you mean like bigger than a basketball court? One guy's like, look, I wouldn't even bought that as a kid. Like, if you're the parent, just get a table, paint it black, put some lines on it, build a little tower, there you go. Just buy him the Sky Striker. There's the aircraft carrier.
Well, I mean, the fact that the flag came with a Sky Striker.
Yeah, and I think a Dragonfly helicopter. Like, and I don't know, was it Admiral Keelhaul probably? Yeah, nothing like a figure that's only available on the biggest fucking toy ever made. Yeah, they well, I say they don't do that, but I just mentioned the big ass Cobra airship that I think might be bigger than the Terradrome. Like, I've got one of those. It's in pieces, but I've got one. Need to clean it up and sell it because I'm never going to do anything with it. Or destroy it and videotape it and make some people cry. Because they'll be like, why would you do that? Like, for clicks, why else?
Well, it's not like we make any money. We're like, oh yeah, I'm just going to destroy this on camera,
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm sure if we got to that, if we ever somehow got to that point, that'd get some views. But no, I'd use the sparklers on that one.
Yeah.
I could actually probably wire it with all kinds of stuff so it'd like disintegrate and fly to pieces.
One of my thoughts is that when we do some of the game reviews, we'll actually play some games. We could do a Mystery Science Theater 3000 style and have the camera behind us, and as we're recording and playing the gameplay, and we just make comments about it.
Yeah. So I watched something else on streaming, but I have totally forgotten what the hell it was now.
I don't even know what the hell we're talking about.
Well, we were in streaming, but we have wandered way off course.
Which is fine because I don't think we had any concrete topics to talk about.
No, this is definitely random theater here. No. Oh, watched the first episode of the new season of Invincible, which is on Amazon Prime. No, there's no link to a subscription in the thing yet. I haven't got that up and running. But if you saw season 1 of Invincible, season 1 was excellent, by the way. Season 2 is off to a good start. I also watched the prequel movie about Adam Eve that was also really good. And I'm convinced that this entire series just runs on tragedy at this point. Because, like, some pretty epic fucking tragedy happens in season 1. Those of you who haven't seen it. That's one thing I'm not going to spoil. Because that was awesome.
Kind of hard to not to, like when I'm like I've probably seen a lot of Invincible based off of just like Facebook, just like throwing me videos of stuff.
Well, there is the one scene that's been memed to hell and back, where
oh yes, where he's like the thing.
Yeah, which actually someone noticed in an upcoming D&D. It's a Pathfinder, the undead set. There's a burning skeleton that appears to be doing that, and someone was like, "Hey, wait a minute!" And so they put the picture down there, like, "What the hell's going on here? What's the burning skeleton trying to tell us? Think, player, think." Hell, I've even seen it turned into BattleTech memes, where that's been turned into a Nikolai Malthus, the bad guy from the cartoon, and he's got just some other random guy, and he's like, "Think, Clanner, think. If you didn't want you to commit the war crimes, why did you pilot the Piranha with all the machine guns?" And things like that. Or like, if they didn't want you to do this, why is the mech designed that way?
Well, and like I said, not going to get into any spoilers. There's two or three scenes that come up a lot. That one comes up in meme format. The one with the train.
Yeah.
That comes up a lot. And then the Justice, I can't remember what this is.
Yeah, the big fight.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that one comes up a lot too.
Well, it's Omni-Man. He's in the prequel movie, because that's right around the time. Well, no, he's been on Earth for a while. But he's still not like an official member of that group. He's only like a backup member. And so he's in a couple scenes, and it's the ones in the credits where, like, if you know what happens later, it's one of those, like, moments, because, like, his wife, you see his son, who eventually is invincible. This is back before he has any powers. And he's like, "Look, Dad, I'll be a hero like you. I'll be Duct Tape Man." And he's like covered himself in duct tape. He's like, "I don't need to have powers. I'll just use duct tape on people." And his mom's like, "So I can get this costume off." Like, peels one. He's like, "Ah!" And it's like, "All right, let's go to the bathroom." And then she tells Omni-Man, you need to clean up the dishes and everything while I go do this. And once she leaves, you can see this look of just like utter contempt come across his face, like, "That fucking woman telling me to do this." But then, like, he stops and you see him just put his head in his hands, because he does actually love her. Despite what he said, he actually does.
Even after what he does later in because again, I've probably watched most of it without even having to watch it, because
yes, despite his comment of he loves her like a pet, he does actually love her.
So that in his everywhere he goes.
Yeah. Well, anyway. But it just shows like that moment where he has that initial reaction, the Vitramite reaction, but then it's like, "Oh fuck, I can't be like this. Like, I actually do care for these people."
Well, that and I said, like, there's all sorts of stuff, like the one where he flies off through the portal when the invasion happens.
Yeah, it spends like 100 years just wiping out everybody on the other side. Yeah.
They're pretty much like, "Yeah, you need to open this portal before I drop this mountain on you," and then
yeah.
That and what was the other one? Oh, when the one agents come into his home, invisible. Like I said, I've seen snippets of like everything.
Yeah, well, I mean the show itself is really good though,
Yeah,
and like it proved to me that like so much in it is just like random comic book trope crap that doesn't they don't even bother explaining it. It's like aliens invading, sure. Superhero team, why not? These two guys, one's a clone of the other one. You don't know which one, and whenever one of them dies, he makes another clone, but he doesn't know which body is the real clone, and because it swaps the brains, like
yeah.
sure, just like zany comic shit like that. Like this one, this season 2 opens up with some guy that can open up portals to other dimensions, and so he was realized that like across the multiverse, they've probably solved every conceivable problem somewhere. So he has gathered all the versions of him that he can find and is going to channel all their memories into him. So he knows like where they've cured cancer, where they've done this, where they've done this. So he can bring it all together to make their dimension awesome and then proceed outward. So he needs the twins because the brain part, because the clones, that's what they do. And yeah, but it's one of those like, yeah, of course this happens. It's a comic book universe. Why not? You know. And so that tells me that like if someone were even half a writer, they should be able to come up with their own comic book series. Just lean into the tropes and have an interesting story because you don't need to explain any of the rest of it. Marvel and DC have spent the last century explaining it.
Well,
just lean into it.
The one thing that I see debates on Facebook all the time, and that I've only watched snippets of it of two different shows. People are like, "Oh, who would win versus Omni Man and Homelander?" People are like, "Omni Man would wipe the floor with Homelander."
Yeah, having not watched The Boys, I don't know, but
from even what I've seen, because like even small things like there's one with Homelander where he's like they're in a falling aircraft and he's like, I can't do anything to save these people, and I mean, I'm pretty sure. I mean, Omni Man wouldn't care; he would just let them all die, but he could if he wanted to. uh, but then it comes down to that. Usually in all those battles, it's like Superman, Omni Man, Homelander, then Satama, and Satama wins every time because the anime plot armor that he's literally One Punch Man. I know.
Yeah, well, I'm still convinced that the current Dragon Ball, whatever the hell it's called, was written entirely just so the author could say that yeah, Goku can beat Superman. Because I believe by the logic of Dragon Ball Z, no, he actually shouldn't be able to. Because did you watch the Cell Saga?
Yeah.
You remember the one episode after they've been training in the hyperdimension thing forever, and Goku and Gohan are sitting there on the bank of the river, and what's the little guy's name?
You have Krillin.
Krillin is like, man, I bet Goku's so in tune with the universe, he's gonna know when to throw this rock at him. He throws a rock and hits him in the head, and Goku's like, ow, damn it, that hurt. Like, that would not phase Superman.
No.
The rock would break on Superman. That's how I know that 90% of the fights in Dragon Ball Z, they're not hitting each other, they're dodging. And the moment they start hitting is when the fight starts going downhill for somebody.
Yeah. But they also do have the ability.
What I'm saying is, that won't work against Superman.
No.
Because
they do have the ability
like, you're not going to be able to hurt him.
I'm going to say, from the very beginning, they had the ability to destroy planets. Like, when Vegeta first came to Earth, he had the ability to destroy a planet. I'm just saying,
that's not going to stop Superman. That was the problem.
No.
Like, hello?
No,
got a guest host here.
No, to where they're at now, maybe.
Well, because someone explained to me something in one of the new ones that like, oh, well, X, Y, and Z happened. I'm like, that's literally to spell out so he could defeat Superman. Like, you grasp that, right? That has no reason to be in the show.
Yeah, because now he's like pretty much going to be like the assistant to God.
Yeah, and so it's like before they were powerful, but they weren't indestructible. Like a fucking rock thrown by Krillin hurt him. Like Superman would be like, "What are you doing?" And Apocalypse would be like, "I'm the rocks of the eternal shore. Crash upon me and be broken." In a much grovelly, deeper voice.
Yeah, no, I mean, but yeah, no, to that point. But no,
that's a line from the '90s animated series.
I'm waiting for to see what Dragon Ball Z fans think of the new series called Dragon Ball Daiyama, which is turning them into children.
Sure, why not?
Well, people
I checked out in the middle of the Majin Buu saga, so
people stated, and I kind of agree with this, that Dragon Ball lost something when it went to Dragon Ball Z. Like Dragon Ball Z was fine. Like don't get me wrong, the Frieza arc I think was the pinnacle and should have stopped. Cell Saga was fine. The Buu Saga got a little bit whatever. GT is an atrocity onto humankind. Dragon Ball Super, for what it is pretty decent. The fact that they resurrected Frieza and Frieza actually went and trained and became, an actual threat again. I give them some credit for that. But no, there was something lost with the charm of just the original Dragon Ball, where it was just a kid, that was getting stronger and was taking on an entire army, and then finally a just a planetary threat. Not destroy the planet kind of threat, but just a planetary threat that was could take over the world. And this sounds like it's going to be they're trying to recapture some of that, but from what I gather, they're still going to have all the same powers. They're just going to be turned into children. So,
yeah, I don't know if I'm down for that, but
I don't know. I don't know. So there's something lost with all of the power scaling and all of this stuff. And like I said, when they finally released the Majin Buu saga, that's where it should have stopped. I mean, most animes that I look now barely go that far. I think the only one that's I think just came to an end too was Attack on Titan. It's like some uber amount of, like, I don't know, 17 seasons or something like that, about giants that eat people.
yeah.
And I mean, I just looked up that Hellsing was only 13 episodes and was able to accomplish a lot in those 13 episodes.
I mean, Cowboy Bebop is 26 episodes and a movie that you don't have to watch.
Yep.
And it's considered top tier.
Yeah.
It's in a lot of discussions I see are like, okay, you've got someone that doesn't like anime, but they've agreed to watch one show beginning to end. Like, what's it going to be? That's the one I see frequently pointed to.
Well, I miss those days of growing up watching. It may have been on Adult Swim, but it's like I think it's when they used to do the anime hour, because you had just these random stuff. Like the one I always remember is Big O,
Yeah.
which also had a pretty compelling story. I mean, it's like, yeah, it's a giant robot fighting stuff, but it's like the whole thing was like everyone in the city had lost their memory, and
Yeah, the end of that gets a little trippy. Yeah, that was on Toonami.
Yeah,
is what that was on.
couldn't remember what show I don't know. I missed that because they had always these random anime stuff, but they were really good. And I don't know.
That's where I saw Gundam Wing, which led to me watching the original Gundam series, to which I found out why people online are like, yeah, Gundam Wings is a pale imitation, because it was. But yeah.
Then just like all the weird stuff, like like Neo Genesis Evangelion.
I actually didn't watch that until like a year ago.
Pretty messed up. I mean, again, it's just like, oh, giant robots, and it's like, what the hell
is
this turning into?
That's what I was about to say about the original Gundam series, not Gundam Wing, the original Universal Century storyline. It pulls you in at that, oh man, this is awesome, giant robots, and before long you're like, Jesus, war sucks. Like, what the hell's going on here? Named characters are dropping like flies. The main guy's got PTSD, and like the captain of the ship is just slapping him around all over the damn place. There's literally an episode where Amuro is like, I don't want to kill anyone anymore. And old Bright Noah's just like, get back in there, you bastard, and go kill more Zeon soldiers. He's like, I'm just a 15-year-old kid, you son of a bitch. And he's like, I don't care. Confine him to quarters till he agrees to go kill more Zeons. It's like, goddamn, Noah.
What is it with putting 15-year-old kids into Gundam suit or any sort of robotic suit? Because that's exactly what they did in Neon Genesis. Because they were kids, and then it turned out that the suits they were in had like the spirits of their mom, and so they were like, when they were flooded in fluid, it was like they were in the womb. And then you get into the whole like biblical side of that, and it's like, what the hell is this?
Yeah, the show that just kind of ended, and they were like, we didn't really have a satisfying ending. Let's make a movie to explain it. And the author is like, challenge accepted. It was like, I'll make something that no one will fucking understand. That's where we get End of Evangelion.
Because that's where you get at the very end where he has to like make a decision on what.
Yeah, like everyone gets turned into orange juice, and he has to decide what happens to their souls or something. And he's like, "Well, you guys can all go into space, but except for what's her name,
Yeah,
the redhead.
she got to stay with him.
Like she gets to become back into mortal shell, and like I guess we'll be Adam and Eve now."
Yeah, I'm just like, what the hell did I just watch?
And then have you seen like the latest like let's attempt to explain things movies? They gave it another go. There's 4 movies. The first one, you get most of the way through, and you're like, this is just the series. Then, like, some fucking curveball comes out of the end. Then the next 3, it's just like, oh, okay, well, here we go, I guess. But, like, it's weird. It assumes that you've seen the others. Because, like, towards the end, one dude just, like, orange juices, but they don't explain what the fuck just happened. And it's like, what the hell is this? And then, like, the whole thing, spoiler alert, by the way, here, folks, comes down to, like, some fight between Shinji and his dad over like the fact his dad's kind of an asshole and like won't let his mom go and this, that, and the other. And then like it all just morphs into like reality. Like everyone just becomes like regular people in the real world again.
About as
and Shinji winds up with the new girl that's in the show, and it's like it's like it assumes that the events of the others have all happened, and this is like the 3rd iteration of it or something.
That'd be like if you went into watching most of Full Metal Alchemist, but then came in and watched finished watching Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, and you're like, I thought this was just like a re-release of the same thing. No, it's like 2 totally different shows. They end on
it's around. I used to know the episode. It's like episode 8 or 9. There's a divergence real early on. Something happens differently. I think it has to do with Maze Hughes, if I remember right. But then it's somewhere in like episode 8 or 9 where you stop being like, I've seen this before. It's like, I haven't seen this before. Did I forget something? Then you're like, we're not heading towards World War II, are we? No, we're not. We're heading towards some homunculus that wants to go fight God.
Yeah, because the homunculus is also a huge divergence in both series. I think the homunculi stick together more in the original one, and then the other one they kind of die off periodically. Like they're killed off sooner or killed off progressively or whatever.
Yeah,
But
until you get to the original.
And then it's like you watch all this and you're just like, I know I've seen this before. And then it's like, what the is this? It's just. I do actually like the war ending one. I like the idea.
I've not watched all the way through the first one. I started watching it, and then something happened. I didn't watch the rest of it. Then I started watching Brotherhood, and I'm like, what's the difference? Then finally, like, I got to an episode. I was like, this is not the same. What is going on here? And then like, oh, this has like 50 some odd episodes, like, and they don't sound the same. So here we go.
Yep. So
yeah, no, Brotherhood was excellent though. If you folks haven't watched that, like, definitely worth a watch. Those of you who play D&D, I'm sure you can make a D&D campaign out of it somehow.
Yeah, especially the whole map thing, because where they talk about the previous country where they were like visiting, they looked on the map and they're like, realize it.
Yeah, they realize that it's the main homunculus is creating an alchemical circle on the map that's going to have to that's going to go with like where the eclipse is going to shadow the sun, the moon's shadow is going to create circle and everything.
Yeah.
Again, so he can like fight God or something.
Well, so I believe that's so he can create the Philosopher's Stone.
Well, they already had the Philosopher's Stone. It's so he can open up the ultimate doorway to get to the that thing that's on the other side whenever they go through.
That's also weird because at some point they go through and they see I can't think of his brother's name. You like see his body there at the door.
Yeah.
Because of the whole equivalent exchange. They're like, we're gonna bring our mom back. Well, you got to exchange enough for that.
Well, it wasn't just that. They were also had to pay the price for breaking the taboo of trying to transmute human form. And then he had to do it again to try to save his brother. So that's why the main one, that's why he lost 2 limbs and his brother's just dust in the wind. But then he gets his brother back at the end because he sacrificed his powers because he realized that he didn't actually need them. Some inner peace baloney. Like, to me, I don't know about that whole didn't need them thing. Like, look, I could have used them when he was hanging shingles at the end of the episode, but.
Yeah. Anyways, I think we've rambled on enough here.
Yeah, probably.
Well, that and I know I've drank that and the beer that I that I put up, so I know that I'm gonna have to use the facilities here in a moment.
Yeah. Let's fine folks probably don't want to hear that part, but
No, I can take it in the bathroom. um, but no,
I do have wireless lapel mics if you want to go for that.
no. Anyways,
might lose some subscribers.
Or gain some.
Or I wasn't gonna like that was in my mind. I was like, don't say it. It's true, but don't say it.
This is the comedy gold that you guys stick in for here.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't think I watched anything else on streaming this week. If I did, I'll mention it in the next episode. But,
yeah, we gotta have some stuff in the next. Actually, we went pretty long for having no agenda.
Yeah, we did.
So, anyways, I mean, definitely if you're still listening in, I mean, we appreciate it. I mean, like I said, we hit the 300. Hopefully we stay there and keep going up.
Yeah.
We'll have to find something to do on that, but definitely let us know if there's any topics, anything that you want us to go over. We'll do our best, because obviously we don't know what we have our own interest. I know our interests are wide and varied, but I've already had to request for a discussion that I'm like, I have no clue. Like, it was on Double Dragon. I'm like,
yeah,
I've played Double Dragon, but I was never a big Double Dragon fan, so not something I'd be able to really talk too much on. So, but feel free to throw comments down in there, especially if it's any topics we talk about here. I mean, we did talk about the Lord of the...
Well, I mean, I definitely don't want to beat the dead horse of like differences between the movies and the books, because there's probably like
we could do...
There's probably hours of YouTube material on that, but we could possibly talk about things like why they made those choices, the impact it has on the plot, and things like that. I think that's probably less covered, because what does removing Tom Bombadil do to the story, for instance? Absolutely nothing.
But you also remove one of the probably cooler elements with the Barrow Downs.
Right, but you without going into because of the topic for another day, but you could have still used that, still had Aragorn explain where the blades came from to get back to that.
Yeah, no. And same thing with killing Sauron in Isengard versus letting him go and ravage the Shire.
Yeah.
Battle for the Shire.
Yeah, because you could tell that they probably filmed something for that, because we have that flash of the Shire in flames and at least Sam enslaved.
Yeah.
Even though it's Frodo saying it. But it was still kind of there, but not really. And so, and to me, I think I'm not an expert, so I don't know what Tolkien was actually going for, but I think it was just to show that nothing was unaffected.
I just wanted to see him called Sharky.
Yeah. But I think the whole point was just to show that the fallout of all this affected everything, and that was how they did it. Whereas in the movie, they go with the hobbits. Those four in particular are clearly returning home changed individuals.
Yeah. Well, the one question I have, and I don't know if they ever, and this may be for another day. Actually, I want to put it for another day. Is during the fall of Arnor, did the Shire ever deal with?
Couldn't say.
Because that's also the weird thing that like Aragorn's birthright is for the kingdom of Arnor, not, which I guess inherently makes him in the line of Gondor too.
I don't know. I didn't read all the appendices, so I couldn't say. I probably should at some point.
But I believe because I want to say the line of Isildur was in Arnor. I could be wrong on that. I watch all these things, all these videos on it, and it's trying to keep.
Well,
but
I mean, because Isildur was the king of Gondor.
Was he?
Yeah, because that's why there's a steward.
Oh, well, that's right. Because but the line of Isildur, the two families split off, and one went to go rule Gondor, one went to go rule Arnor. That's how he's in the line of Isildur, because he's part of the line that went up to Arnor. I believe. I could be wrong.
I just know if I have my lineages correctly, Aragorn should also be a descendant of Elrond's brother, because the line of kings is Elrond's brother that chose to become mortal. Which choosing to become human didn't mean, hey, I'm only going to live for a few years. He still lived 1,000 years, because he's got elf magic in him. But that's why his daughter is able to choose to stay, it's because they're the children. It's children of Baron and Luthien, right? I think
Maybe.
because it's the man and the elf.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's Baron and Luthien.
But
Uh,
a baron is a tragedy. Oh yeah, the only way you're gonna be able to marry, Luthien is if you go and steal one of the Silmarils from Morgoth's crown. Which,
yeah,
I mean, she does, and then
yeah,
gets his hand eaten off. But
yeah. Or if I remember correctly, it's been once I read the Silmarillion, like how Galadriel is like the only part of her family that didn't just go crazy over stupid shit. Because it's one of her relatives did a bunch of shit involving some vendetta, I think involving the Cimarrols. But yeah, because she's the oldest elf in Middle Earth. Because she was actually alive to see the two trees, and like there's a couple lines in the book about like the light of the two trees is still reflected in her eyes and everything. And so, yeah, she's significantly older than most of the other elves.
yes, okay. So what this gathers me is that we need to have a discussion just on Lord of the Rings at
Yeah,
some
probably.
point. Just randomness, and maybe we'll make it one where it's like maybe not going so much with the facts, but just some speculations and different things like
Well,
that.
we could do what we talked about, what I mentioned earlier with the Greek mythology. We'll get maybe Chad in here, and I don't know if Brad's read the books, but like people that vaguely remember about 70% of it, and we'll try to piece it together.
Yeah, no, there's all sorts of stuff. Like I always like the history of all of the cities and stuff. Like Minas Morgul, before it became Minas Morgul, it was
Yeah,
something else. It was one of the two brothers that ruled over Gondor. One was in Minas Tirith, and one was over there. And then it's like, well, no, you're at the pretty much right there at the mouth of Mordor. We're gonna not allow that.
yeah,
Anyways,
yeah,
enough rambling.
yeah.
I can say we're gonna get off here. I say even our sound box is like, I'm about done here.
I hope not.
No, it's got 2 bars left. We're good. We're good. It's
Oh, good. Still got one or two things after this. Not for this.
all right. No, we're good. We can plug that up and charge it. So, anyways, definitely let us know if Lord of the Rings topics is something that you find interesting, because we can talk about that. I know we've got Star Wars stuff that we have to go through at some point, and it can't just be bashing the Last Jedi and the Rise of Skywalker.
I mean, it can be, but that won't be productive.
Or maybe we do franchise fixes to fix.
Well, like I said, I want to do that, but it's going to be like a multi-part thing because the way I want to do that one, because there's so many movies and because we talk about it so often, is I want to start with like, suppose you have to actually keep everything Disney's done so far. What do you think you could possibly do to right the ship? And
Make it a fever dream.
that's an option.
Ray turned out Ray was actually just on Jakku having a fever because of the heat.
And then like the next one will be we have to keep The Force Awakens because we agree that it's while I don't think it's the greatest Star Wars sequel, it's still an okay movie.
It's entertaining.
But then like it's up to you what after that from Disney, if anything, you keep, and then where do you go from there? And then the next like step back will be okay. Lucas's 6 movies, we're keeping those. Where do you go? And then it's the original trilogy. Now where do you go? And the last episode will be like you have all the money in the world and maybe George Lucas to help you, and somehow any cast members, even if they're past, you somehow have access to them, even if it's like Tarkin-esque. Like if you had to like rebuild things from the ground up, what would you keep? What would you ditch? What would you change? You know,
we could always talk about the comic strip where they took the original concept of that Lucas came up with and made a comic strip out of it.
oh yeah,
Yes, like it's a fever dream of a thing, because it's like, well, you see the characters here. They have like the characters.
is it all like Ralph McQuarrie art?
Yes, and it's like completely just out. I don't know. I'm gonna have to find it, but it is completely out of left field.
Yep. For those of you that don't get that reference, if you ever look online, you can find the reference images and like the artist renderings of like whenever George Lucas like here's my idea, and then someone would actually like try to bring it to life. A lot of that, if not all of that, was done by Ralph McQuarrie, and you can definitely see where his art eventually became other things. And like they actually used to make action figures based on how the Ralph McQuarrie art looked. Because like the Ralph McQuarrie Stormtrooper, because this is before the Jedi were super special, the Stormtroopers had lightsabers too, and like a shield, and you can tell that like some of that concept made it into like the Force Awakens, probably.
They do sell it in a thing here. I was just looking at Wikipedia. It's what do they call it? It's just called The Star Wars.
Okay.
Um, it says you may be looking for a draft of the original screenplay upon which the comic is based.
Ah.
So that's what they. That's I'm gonna have to order that just because it is like. I mean, because you know Star Wars, you've lived it. You know, I was just thinking about this the other day, and
that's when you start off with things like Luke Starkiller and
yes,
yeah.
Because I was in the store the other day and realized that they had like just a Luke and Vader action figure, and I'm like, can you think of any other franchise where toys from 1977 are still just being featured anywhere? I mean, yeah, I mean, you can say, well, let's talk Lord of the Rings. Well, Lord of the Rings toys. Well, no.
Not unless it's based on like the Ralph Bakshi animated movie or something.
Yeah, I mean, it was most of those are based off of the movies and not. And I get it. The movies are based off the book. I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
But most people have gotten into that because of versus something that literally came out then, and then they're still producing.
Yeah, I mean, there's only a handful of things I could like Halloween's from '79. They do still make stuff for Halloween. The first one and the second one. Those are the two that get most of the stuff.
Alien.
Aliens from the late '70s. Not really Star Trek: The Motion Picture.
No, gosh, no.
Like later things, like they just released Wrath of Khan figures again last year. So that's like 82, 83. So close.
But that's another topic. I said we're rambling on here.
Oh, we're way past rambling. We're circling the ramble drain.
Okay, so there's some additional topics there. If any of those sound interesting to you, let us know. But we are going to have to conclude this meeting of the Geek Cabal.
Or we will just keep going.
Or we will keep going because it's I don't know. It's been good to just throw out all this random stuff. Sometimes it's nice not to have.
Yeah, if we ever get to the point that we do like live streams, like that's when we're really just gonna.
Yeah,
we are going to the great beyond there. So
well, that'd be also great to have if we get to the point where we can actually have people interacting with us while we're.
Well, I know at least one person out there. And we're thankful for your interaction. You know who you are.
Got two people to interact.
I keep meaning to put his picture up on a Facebook post and YouTube posts. I'm going to do that. I keep forgetting to do that. And I apologize because we took pictures. So.
Yep. All right. Well, anyways, that's all that we have. Make sure you do the normal YouTube stuff, the like, comments, share, subscribes, all that stuff. We want to get that count keep going up. We are going to do something special for you 300 that have put us over that first goal of ours.
Yes, and we are, and again, we are very appreciative of that.
Oh yeah,
so
no. I mean, I don't even, I don't even know that I could, I couldn't have ever imagined getting to that. I mean, it's kind of humbling to be honest.
Yeah. So. Yeah, I didn't think we'd make it to that point.
So definitely appreciate it.
Or not this quickly, I should say. Like grinding over time, maybe, but
Yeah. But
yes. So thanks again, and you guys stay safe, stay happy, stay out of trouble. I don't know. I'm not your mom. I shouldn't be telling you that, but
yeah, and meet you at the next meet you at the next meeting here. So.
Yes, the meeting is adjourned.
Yes, echoes of a whisper may be coming.
Yes, keep an eye out for the echoes of a whisper. Although, if you listen to all of this, you've probably heard what's going to be there. But we appreciate you listening to that too if you want to. So, anyway,
all right,
adios.
See you later.